Hey everybody, you are about to listen to a Breaking Bad review discussion. Now, for some context, this was recorded a very long time ago, almost 4 whole months ago, back on April 2nd, 2020. I know it's been a long time, and I promised this a long time ago, but unfortunately, I think we can all agree 2020 has been one of the worst years ever. And due to some personal issues, I have just delayed this discussion for a very long time, and I've actually had this finished for almost 2 whole months, but I just never released it, and I do apologize for that. But finally, maybe we can sit back, enjoy 2020. I have a really good discussion with myself, Bob, and a special guest. It's a really interesting, well-spoken, deep conversation about so many aspects of Breaking Bad. It may be 3 hours long, but we still somehow barely scratched the surface. I even hope to have maybe a future discussion with Bob, our special guest, on this little discussion, and maybe even some more guests. So if you are interested in talking to me about any TV shows or movies in depth like we do Breaking Bad in this discussion, please let me know. Join my Discord. Maybe, if this is something that people like, I will do it again. That is, if I ever get around to editing it. But please do enjoy the discussion. And of course, spoilers ahead. I guess, just out of, I don't know what's the word, kindness, we should probably introduce ourselves, to each other. So, yes. I mean, I know, This is Bob.
Hello.
He's the one that got me into Breaking Bad, so he's kind of the reason we're here.
Nice. Well, thank you for doing that.
Of course.
And then you're Connor, right? Is your name?
Yes.
Were you just watching my videos and then I'm assuming that's how you found me, not like live stream.
Yeah, no, I didn't know about your channel before the Breaking Bad
fair.
discussions or breakdowns you posted. I found them. I had been, when El Camino came out, I got back into Breaking Bad, right? I got back into that. Oh, I want to rewatch scenes and stuff. And I've been watching a lot of reaction videos, which I usually am not a big fan of. However, it's so cool to see people's first times, being recorded. And,
I did exactly the same thing after I watched Breaking Bad, because I watched Breaking Bad for the first time like 6 months ago. So
I love how you said that, because that was going to be my first topic. But let's just roll. Let's go.
Okay.
But sorry. So go ahead. You were saying.
Oh yeah, so when I first watched it, 2016, there was hardly any reactions whatsoever to Breaking Bad online, and then starting around 2018 is when a few popped up, and then now there's tons, and I'm so glad, because it's one of my favorite things to watch other people watch, which is kind of a convoluted mess when you think about it.
I get it though. Yeah, I didn't. I was actually thinking of recording actual reactions. For me, honestly, that'd be boring. Because when I watch a show, I'm just very much just or anything, I'm just kind of just Occasionally I'll be like, what the fuck? But it never. I'm not I feel like if I was recording a reaction to Breaking Bad, I'd feel obligated to entertain people. So I would be like, I have to watch a show and entertain people. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to enjoy the show for what it was, instead of having to have to put on an act and be like Walt's just I don't know, say my name, and I'm like, oh, what? Ah, he said it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I totally get that. Usually, unless I'm watching something with other people, I usually don't talk during film or TV. I pay very close attention, just intently watching.
Yeah. I get it. I feel that.
Well, Bob, how did you get into Breaking Bad? You only watched it recently, 6 months ago?
Yeah. I had watched it for about 3, maybe 4 years ago. I watched the first season, and I got up into I think I made it through the 3rd episode of the 2nd season, right when Tuco died, and I stopped watching. It didn't hook me for some reason. I don't know why. But then when I went back and I was like, all right, I need something to watch. So I was like, okay, I never finished Breaking Bad, and I keep hearing that it's amazing. So I was like, all right, I'll actually give it a college try, and it hooked me immediately. And I don't know why it didn't before.
I remember,
but
yeah,
it decided to get me.
I remember before I started watching the show, you were like, because I remember that I knew that you watched the show before, because I remember we talk, we were friends for a long time. We just probably brought it up one time and it stuck in my head. And I remember one day you were like, "Oh, you should watch Breaking Bad," and I was like, "Oh yeah, like how are you watching it?" And you go, "Yeah, I just finished it," and I was like, "What? Like what do you mean? Like, I didn't even know you started it." And I remember you being like, I don't know how I didn't get hooked the first. Like I don't know what I was thinking the first time, and I was like, "Oh boy," that got me way more interested in watching it. I'm like, "Oh god, now
I flew through it too, and then I flew through Better Call Saul after.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, how far are you in Better Call Saul?
I'm an episode behind. I haven't watched this week's episode yet.
I'm beginning of the 5th season, so I've only 3 episodes in.
Okay.
Oh, I could talk about that forever, but that's not what we're here today.
I haven't seen any of it yet, so I'm sure I will watch it, and I'm sure I will binge it. I just need to like get into it. I don't know. I just need.
You needed to give Breaking Bad closure first.
Yeah, I guess this is what this is. Just kind of like accept that it ended. It's almost like.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like I mean I guess we all watched the show long after it ended, right? At least a couple years minimum.
Yeah, I watched it 2016.
So it's like about 3 years after it ended, yeah.
And I've watched it about 3 or 4 times since then. So
yeah,
all the way through, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so we all weren't really like following it. I guess Bob and I, we were when it started. How old? We were younger. We were pretty younger, right? Like
we were I believe like 12,
12
when it started.
2008. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so I'm only 20, so I was only 8 when it started in 2008.
Wow.
So I did not watch it when I was 8 years old.
Yeah, I do remember hearing about it when it first came out though, and like immediately when it came out, it had like an impact, at least on my brother who talked about it nonstop. And he's actually never even finished the show, so I don't know what happened to that. Yeah, he got into like season 5, and then I don't know. He knows he'll like it, but I mean,
I can understand people quitting within like the first 2 seasons.
I don't think
you get season 5. How do you not?
He didn't. Well, because he watched it when it came out, as it came out, and he didn't quit. I don't think so. I think he just got busy, and then.
Oh yeah.
He is like, yeah, I gotta watch the show. He's like, I can start all over again. I'm like, yeah, you really do. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. So basically, I have a bunch of topics. Like, how many do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 12, 13. Just like random stuff. I was like, oh, this is a Breaking Bad thing we have to talk about. But I'm not gonna like be like, oh, we have to talk about each one and order. Like, I just have them. If like we're just like, what's next? Then I'll just be like, oh, how about this? I'm sure many of this stuff will just come up naturally. I don't necessarily plan for this to be like 100% free flow. Like I guess I kind of do, but I just kind of expect like, we'll just get to what we get to, and I don't know how long we'll go. If one of you's just like, please end this, I'm done. Maybe I'll feel the vibe, or you can just tell me, just like, I don't want to do this anymore, because I don't know. I'll kind of read. Well, once we have stuff to really not talk about or excitingly talk about, we'll cut it off.
I'm ready for a marathon. I'm ready to talk for a couple hours. I don't know how long this is gonna go, but
Bob and I just watched the first fucking Lord of the Rings movie extended edition. So
yeah,
I mean, I'm ready. I've been sitting down for 4 hours already, so I don't fucking give a shit. But
how was that?
It was good. It was really good.
Yeah,
it was
awesome.
Really good.
Yeah.
So that was
it had been years since we watched it, so it was like a
revisit.
We're doing it for our podcast tomorrow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess oh man. All right, so we all talked about how we first watched Breaking Bad. I guess I would have to say, like, what is your like? All right, this is a very broad question, and if you don't have an answer, I'll just pop in. But like, when you think of like Breaking Bad, like, what's like the first sort of, I guess, attribute of it? Do you think about like the characters? Do you think about like the cinematography? Do you think about like the writing, or like the like certain scenes? Like, what's like the first thing you think of when you think of Breaking Bad?
For me, it'd probably be a split pretty evenly between the characters and the cinematography.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many memorable characters, and like they're all so well fleshed out.
Right.
But then you also think of all the crazy shots and everything.
Oh God.
How it was filmed. It's just it's pretty much an even split between those.
That's very fair.
Yeah, I would say the first thing I think about is the characters, but then I also think about the cinematography and symbolism and colors and how that props up the characters. That's basically the first thing I think
I mean, Yeah, I noticed the first time I noticed colors, like the main sort of like wow, how the show uses colors is crazy. Is back in season 1 where like yellow was popping up constantly, and I was like why is like I was like yellow, and then like I kind of like put it together. I'm like, oh, like yellow is like almost like it's like. Well, I guess we'll talk about my stoplight theory later, but I don't know if that's been talked about. I don't actually like know what people have talked about the show, so I don't know if I'm gonna say stuff and everyone's gonna be like, yeah, of course, everyone knows that. But basically, the yellow is almost like a warning, like obviously like a stoplight, like the stop. It's not full red yet, which we get to later. But I it's in season 1. I think if maybe my memory is correct, but I'm pretty sure the plate, right, that remember when a scene where Walt puts the plate back together?
Yeah.
That plate was yellow. I'm pretty confident in saying that.
It
was.
And I remember seeing that and being like, "Holy shit! Like that's so genius." And like the hazmat suits are yellow, and I was like, "Whoa! Like yellow's really popping up a lot." And then like characters like started like getting like specific colors. Like I mean like the most obvious one is like Marie, like purple everywhere. Like purple, like it's kind of like almost distracting how much purple there is. In a good way, but like, and then like how like Walt's colors change over the time as his character change. Like, yeah, it's so smart.
Yeah, that's the big one.
It's so
and
smart.
like the color inside the lab is
so
much red inside the lab.
That is exactly what I was going to talk about. Yes, because in that scene where we get introduced to the lab, Gus is wearing yellow, and for I guess from Walt's perspective, or from I guess the show's perspective, Gus is like to Walt that's like. Gotta slow down, like this is the final warning, and then once you see the lab and it's red, it's like this is like the final, like this is it, like this is like that's my stoplight theory. Is like this is like there's no going past this, like you know what I mean? Like yellow's the warning, red's the you're here, like it's done.
Oh, fun fact about the color of the lab, some behind the scenes. Some of the creators regretted making it red because when they, obviously when they designed the lab, they were just talking about season 3, but
Right.
then. Or thinking about season 3, but then beginning of season 4, what happens is that
yes,
Victor gets his and so the blood wasn't showing up as well on the red floor,
right.
So they had to make the blood even darker, and so it did cause them some troubles. That's complete side tangent.
See now for me, and I mean we could get into, I mean we can't because we don't have time, but we could get into like intent. Like for me, it's like I'll watch something and I'll think of it. I'm like, did the creators intend this? But for me, like that, I've come to the like at least personal decision that it really doesn't matter. And for me, like exactly. When I think of that scene with the blood, I thought that the red almost not necessarily foreshadowed that, but like it almost was like, I guess like I don't want to say poetry, but the fact that I don't know, like there was blood shed in the lab, like I thought matched up. I thought that was intentional, but. I don't know. Maybe probably not. But
oh yeah, there's huge discussions to have about does the creator get to decide what things mean, or is it up to the audience?
It's almost
once that work is out in the world,
right?
Is
it's
interpretation
like
valid?
It's like the death of the author, which is
yes, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I have an opinion, but. Yeah, that's the show though, because I'll think about stuff and then people will be like, "That's not what was intended." But I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care." But yeah, with the colors though, like, oh my god, like just, it's so perfect how they use all of them, and there's it's everywhere. Like it's like I feel like I could watch this whole show again and just focus on the colors, and I'd have my work cut out for me, because like every scene is just packed with like colors having like certain symbolism and certain meanings attached to them, and I love that. I love it so much.
I saw an image online that averaged all the colors throughout the whole series, and like it was kind of a gradient. I might be able to find it. It was that image, and then there was another one where it showed every single one of Walt's costumes in a row.
Yeah,
and it was really interesting.
How it gets, like,
I might
darker,
search for it
right?
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I know I've heard that talked about. I haven't actually seen it, but I've heard that talked about how his outfits, the tone changes throughout.
Yeah, he starts off with a lot of green. For my memory. My memory says green. I don't know why. Maybe I'm wrong. But I remember like in the first episode he wore a green shirt. At least sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, I see that.
Magical.
It shows every character and
oh, that's crazy. I'll look at that later. I just love how I see Marie's and hers just doesn't really.
Marie's purple.
Besides at the very end doesn't change.
Even at a glance you can see Skylar White. Look how dark it gets at the end.
That's crazy.
I've never actually looked at that, but I've heard about.
I'll have
the
to.
colorgraph.
I'll have to look at this later and like.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome. Yeah, no, it's insane, and that I mean that's just the cut. That's just what they're wearing. I mean that much detail in that.
That's not even the.
That's not even like what's around them. That's not even like necessarily like the yeah, like how much exposure there is and stuff. Like it's super interesting. But yeah. What are the when you think like cinematography, and I know like maybe it might not come like right away, and there's so much in the show, but like what's a specific scene you think of? You're like the cinematography is just like incredible, or not even incredible, just like it's stuck with you. I know it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a lot of show. I think the last time we rewatched this was 2 years ago too, so I gotta remember a little bit.
Seeing
maybe a year ago.
something recently that I saw was the cinematography in the cold opens in season 2 with the stuff in the pool after the plane crash.
Right.
Yeah.
That stands out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the only color in that the bear?
It was just
pink.
the
Well, it was still bright pink, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was the only. Everything else was black and white. Yeah.
I would say, well, first of all the POV shots.
True.
There's tons of those used in montages and specific shots. Right now I can't think of any shots.
I know it's so hard. I know.
But something that did come to mind was season 5, episode 7. The scene that Mike's killed. It goes.
Yeah.
Once Mike walks away and it shows kind of Walter seething and he kind of goes out of frame to the right.
Yeah.
And then he comes back to the left carrying a gun. I've always liked that shot because you don't know when you're first watching it that he's going to re-enter. And I thought it was just framed well. Cool. I don't know if it symbolizes anything.
No, that's a great moment.
Not everything symbolizes anything.
Yeah. That's a great, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. No, that's a perfect, like, it's just so simple.
Oh, perfect. Ozymandias, he's looking in the mirror. He's sitting in his car after the whole thing. The credits are finally starting to roll under the image, and he sees himself in the mirror, and he turns the mirror away from him.
Oh, that's a good one. It's a really good one. Oh,
that's just what comes to mind.
Oh man, that's a great. That's a good one. I posed this question. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm just having such a hard time. There's
so many shots. It's a big shot.
It's so difficult. I mean, I can think of a lot of like. Very like simple, like just like spectacle shots. I remember there was one shot in season 2, it would have been season 3, where they introduced the twins. Were they twins? They're twins, right?
I think twins. Yeah, I think so.
And like they introduced them, and I remember like the opening shot was like I think it was of the episode was of like this desert and like how the sun was like set up in the background. It was just like. It was like one of the most beautiful shots I've ever seen, and it was like, "This is how you open a season. We're just opening up right here."
Is that when everyone's crawling on the ground?
Yeah,
on all fours.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a very, very orange episode. Yeah. I guess anything that takes place in Mexico, they make orange. Yeah, that's everything.
Yeah, I was like,
I like the way everything's. I like the way everything's shot at the at Don Eladio's place.
Yes. Yes.
Everything there's great.
Yes.
Especially when Hector Salamanca kills Gus's old partner.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic moment.
Yeah. That pops in my mind too.
And the blood in the pool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh man.
I remember specifically. I keep trying to name episodes, but I'll just say what scene it was.
It's okay.
Yeah. There was a flashback where it showed Walter and Skylar entering their house for the first time.
Oh, that was the last episode of season, I think 4.
3. Season 3. This is because that was the episode where they killed Gale.
You're right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So there's the shot where it circles the whole house and then comes to a standstill. Where it looks at the fireplace, it goes around, shows the kitchen, but everything empty. Later in the episode, that same exact shot, but everything's furnished, and the camera lays to rest on Walt playing with Holly, and Holly's grabbing his glasses. And, I just found it interesting. Yeah. Repeating shots is one of the most powerful tools in cinema, in my opinion, because it can give so much meaning. It emphasizes something. Okay, this is going again, so it means something.
Yeah, I have an example of that. It necessarily isn't like, wow, like amazing cinematography, but it's an example of like repeating a shot. And and actually, this might be a good segue into a point that I remember because we talked off camera, and or off recording. I remember you brought this up, and I wanted to explore this. But before we do that, I love in season 5 there's the scene where, like, we get the flashback scene where, what was her name? Oh my god, Walt's neighbor. Oh my god,
Carol. Maybe?
Carol. Yes. Yeah. Like it's that scene where he's in his house. Like this is the second half of season 5. He's in his house. It's all like demolished, and he comes out, and Carol sees him, and then drops her bags, like freaking out. And then later in the episode, when we're back in time, like they repeat that same shot, and he goes, "Oh, hi, Carol," and she's like, "Oh, hi," and she's like standing in the same spot. But it's like cool because like that scene acts as both like a foreshadow and a callback simultaneously, because we already saw what happened. So even though this is chronologically our first time seeing Carol, or at least like not maybe seeing her, I think she was in the show before, but you got my point. Like first time chronologically seeing her, it's like not our first time actually seeing her. I find that really interesting how they did that. I really like that.
It shows the difference between people's attitudes to Walt.
Yeah, that too. But I just love how it both is like it's like a foreshadow of what's to happen, even though we already saw the foreshadow. So it's almost like a callback, but it's not a callback because it hasn't happened yet. And it's just like, I don't know, I love it. So simple.
She's played by Vince Gilligan's mother.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, and that is her first appearance. I always mixed her up with the lady that Walt sent into his house with the explosive, and the guys had to fishing the guys out. But no, they aren't the same people.
They aren't the same. Okay, I thought they were.
No, two different sides of the house.
Got it. What I was gonna break the segue. That's Bob. You had something to say. I don't know what I...
Sorry, my brother came in the room I was talking to.
Oh, well, then never mind. What I was gonna say was I remember, Connor, off camera, you said we were talking about the flashbacks in season 5, right? And I don't want to like misquote you, so you can like correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember you said that you didn't like how they handled that, or they didn't like how they did that.
Yeah, just from a purely behind the sines standpoint,
right?
Where they set up the machine gun,
right?
And Walt looking like he did without they didn't know at all,
and the New Hampshire license
plate into place. Yeah. They just didn't know where that was going to lead, and so they kind of had to, because I have the Breaking Bad, Blu-ray set and stuff. There's a 2-hour documentary about the second half of season 5, making of, and they show a lot of the writers' room, and they show discussing different ideas, and they were really struggling with that. And we'll talk about the ending.
Right. We will.
But I really think that flashback really kind of forced them into a certain ending. That's all.
Okay. I guess we'll talk about that then. Okay. All right. That's fair. Okay.
Wait, last shot I thought of.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, crawl space, right?
So there's a reason I didn't bring that up. I can go. If you want to go in the crawl space scene,
real fast. Again, behind the scenes thing, because I think these things are useful.
Yeah.
You know how the camera kind of shakes as it's going up?
Yes.
That's not intentional. That's a part of the. They didn't have the right equipment, and so they had to improvise. But I really think that shaking adds a lot to it as the camera's going up, and he's framed smaller and smaller and smaller in that little crawl space. Yeah. That's one of my favorite shots. I mean, my favorite moment in the show, for sure.
Oh, that crawl space scene is my favorite scene in the entire show. There's no doubt about that. I remember when I was watching that scene, and my parents, who had previously watched Breaking Bad, were in the room, and that scene came on. And I heard about the scene, because I just heard about the crawl space scene. I didn't really know the context. I never watched it. And I saw that, and I was like, holy shit. Like, that's the best scene I've ever seen in any television show. My parents were like, what? Really? And I'm like, yeah, like that scene was insane. Like, it was just like every...
Skylar, where is the money?
Yeah, it was just like, and just the way it was like, just framed, and everything behind it, and it's just like, that is literally the moment where Walter White is just, he dies. Like, the Walter inside of Walter White, or at least the part of him that's not quote-unquote Heisenberg, is dead. Like, he literally just died. Like, he's gone. And it's just like, holy shit, like, it's just like, it's uncontrollable, and the laughter, and it's one of those scenes, and we're actually going to talk about this in like a couple of topics. It'd be fun. That scene is one of those scenes where there are tons of these kind of scenes in Breaking Bad, where you're watching it and like you're kind of laughing, but you're like, I shouldn't be laughing, and I kind of feel bad for laughing. Am I supposed to be laughing? And that's we'll talk more about that later, but that scene is an example. I kind of like just broke out laughing during it with Walt, and I'm like, this isn't funny.
Yeah, even 4 years later, with all the films and television and stuff I've watched, that particular scene is is the scene that in any show or movie or anything has given me the most fierce physical reaction to it. I was shaking literally. I wasn't laughing. I didn't and that's a fine response, right? You can't
Well, but, I mean, I was laughing in horror. Let me put that on the record. It was horrifying.
Yeah.
But I was shaking so bad, and even on rewatches, a lot of the rewatches are me showing it to other people, right?
Right.
And it's basically, as that scene was coming up, my heart rate started to go up. Like I remember what was about to happen. Because, I don't know if this is a good time to talk about it.
Go for it.
That
Talk
scene for me,
go for
that scene for me, hero's journey wise, the typical plot structure.
Yes, which we're gonna
that
talk
is
about.
The climax of the show for me. That is. Think about it. Season 2, he dug that crawl space himself.
Yeah.
He made that pit himself.
Yeah. He literally
it's no one's fault but his own.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I love that they set that up so long ago.
Yeah. I do remember when he was digging that crawl space, and the only scene I knew about coming to the show was the quote unquote crawl space scene. So when he was doing that, I'm like, all right, this is going to happen. But then it was like 2 seasons later. Yeah. It's like building. Yeah. It's a great. But that's a really I never even really thought about that before. He literally did dig his own grave, and I mean, he also literally dug Hank's grave as well. Like he literally dug it. Yeah. So it's like and I guess really the whole show is him literally digging other people's graves, including himself and others around him. Yeah, it's a wow. It's a really good.
It's the moment in the show where he really realizes that all this stuff, the whole thing that he was trying to accomplish was getting the money for his family, and now it's the situation he's made it even worse than them not having money. It's them being killed,
right?
And it just breaks him.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great scene. Oh man, yeah. And I love, and we'll talk about this later. I love how they call back to that scene with the very last shot of the show.
The pen.
Oh I've never thought of that.
Oh really? Oh, we'll talk about that then. Oh, when we get to the ending, which I guess we'll save for later. I guess now, just like a very general, like, what are your, like, I guess really in this show, the main character relationship or character pair is Walt and Jessie, but there are a lot of other ones too. What are your favorite, like, or what are characters or character relationships that like stand out to you? If any, because for me, I really like the Jessie and Walt character pairing is so genius. It's like it's so like how they foil each other and like the different like how they're doing the same thing but where their intentions and where they come from and how they react to certain situations. I think does a really good job of highlighting each character's like flaws, each character's motivations, each character's sort of, I guess, for lack of a better word, like hunger or thirst for whatever they're looking for, and that does change over time, especially for Jessie. But I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's any like scene between two characters or like maybe like a character like there's I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
no, I get it. So relationships besides Walt and Jessie. Well, I mean, obviously my answer would be Walt and Jessie.
That's very fair.
But
yeah.
Because that's the obvious one. That's
right.
It's still crazy to me that they were thinking of killing Jessie in the first season.
Yeah, in the first season.
Then once they met the actor, they liked him, and that's the crux of the whole show. Yeah. So, the other relationship I would say is that stands out to me is Mike and Jessie.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know what? That's a really good one.
Especially how that builds in season 4. It's fantastic.
And that relationship. That shapes Jessie almost more than Walt did, and that's a really, and you know what, that for me when I was watching this show, that came out of nowhere. Like I really didn't expect them to go there with that. Like when they were first like doing their little mission together, I wasn't expecting. I thought it was just gonna be a one-off thing, but yeah, once they start connecting, and that almost in a way is the beginning of the end in terms of like I guess Jessie and Walt's relationship. Like that just marks the end. And
Walt's so jealous of Mike. You can tell.
Well, because Mike and
his relationship with Jessie.
Mike, in a sense, represents everything Walt wants to be, or at least how he wants to appear. Maybe I guess Gus more represents
Besides
that.
Gus, yeah.
Yeah, besides Gus.
Walt thinks he's Gus.
Well, yeah,
This season.
and I mean, there is that line that Mike says in season 5: "Is just because you shot Jesse James doesn't make you Jesse James." Like
Right.
he tries so hard to be like Gus. It's like it's so like it's you get like secondhand embarrassment from it, but in a way, like he wants. I guess what he wants is he wants the relationship that Jesse and Mike has is the relationship he wants to have, like that sort of fatherly figure with
Exactly.
with
And he
Jesse.
kind of does.
Yeah.
You know, for several seasons, but and obviously the relationship gets worse and worse
Right.
as it goes on.
Right.
They're pretty good terms end of season 4 though.
Well, that's
You know,
I
the
mean,
handshake and everything.
Well,
Yeah.
well, that is right after fucking Walt just
Well,
poisons Brock.
Face Off is an episode in and of itself that's absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like, from every kind of aspect, like cinematography and
yeah,
like everything that happened in the episode.
and that handshake. I mean, like, yeah, what Walt had to do though to get that handshake. It's what he was looking for, and like how it almost is like how sad, how desperate he is to get that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he's so desperate for. He's almost like entirely reliant on Jesse's approval, which doesn't really like you wouldn't really expect that at the beginning of the show. Like when they first meet, like for Walt, Jesse is just a means to an end. Like it's just a tool he can use to get what he needs. He doesn't look at Jesse like he looks at Jesse as someone he can use to make connections and to get what he needs to cook the meth and sell it. But like by the end, by like season 4, season 3, like he's almost like just like his connection to Jesse almost drives him to do things that he probably wouldn't do otherwise if he didn't have that connection. So I find that really interesting.
I mean, big telling moments when he accidentally calls Walt Jr. Jesse.
Yeah,
that shows
that's
a lot.
big one. Yes, absolutely. And I think for me, I guess it's my favorite, but it's also the most like horrifying. It's such a hard scene to watch, but I love it. It's the one in season 5, where Jesse and Walt, and then I guess Saul's also there. They meet up in the desert, and there's that scene where like they're talking to each other, and like Walt's like, "Oh, you need to like Jesse, you need to go far away, start your own life," and Jesse's like, "Dude, like stop like fucking me around. Just like tell me you need me to do this for you. You know what I mean? Like be honest. Like tell me that you're only doing this to help yourself." And like there's that scene where like he just breaks down and like Walt like hugs him, but he doesn't hug back, and it's just like it's just so chilling. It's like, oh my god, like Jesse kind of like speaks the truth for once, and there's just like weird moment where like Walt, not weird moment, but there's like almost acceptance of Walt, and I guess the audience, but I've accepted at this point where like Walt throughout the show, his relationship to other people, including Jesse, including Skylar, they're very much they appear on a surface level to be very genuine and that he cares about the other people, but at the end of the day it's only really about him, even if it's just like having this relationship to fulfill something that he's missing inside himself with Jesse. Like it could be argued whether Walt throughout the show genuinely cares about Jesse, and I think he only really genuinely cares about Jesse for himself, not for Jesse. And I think that really Jesse kind of like speaks that to be true in that scene, and it's like that big realization moment for those who may not have realized it watching the show.
Yeah, I think one of the defining moments, middle of smack dab in the middle of season 3, when he realizes he needs to have Jesse in the cook with him so that Jesse doesn't, sue Hank.
Right.
Yes. Or, get into legal with Hank. That's, again, Walt's not doing it because he wants Jesse. He's fine with Gale. Gale's actually fine.
Yeah.
But he needs to. But after that moment, I think Walt genuinely does form a connection with Jesse. I think because we see at the second half of season 5, he is so resistant to killing Jesse when he isn't with anyone else.
Yes.
Even Skylar's okay with it.
Yeah, there's that hotel scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, from her perspective, she doesn't know this kid. She knows that Walt's killed so many people. So what is one more? But Walt views Jesse differently.
Yes, absolutely. And that's actually, you brought up that point with Gale. In a way, like, yeah, Gale, by like every measurable standard as like an assistant is perfect. But even then, I don't know. I think even then, Walt's just not satisfied with Gale. Even before, like, not even disregarding the lawsuit stuff, because he's not. He doesn't have that connection with him. Like, he doesn't have he doesn't feel like a fatherly son connection with him, like he did with Jessie.
I think I disagree. Ooh. I think you remember there was those scenes where he was talking about Gale, that the temperature wasn't up,
right,
and stuff like that. No, I think he did make a real connection with Gale when they were talking about Walt Whitman poems.
That's true.
They were joking about chemistry. The only time he showed dissatisfaction was after he realized that he needed Gale out and Jessie in.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
no. That's a good point. I agree. Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying that he didn't form a connection with Gale. I think he did. But I think like there were moments where, like, wasn't there a moment, if I'm maybe I'm mistaken, wasn't there a moment where like he like was like almost like purposefully like nitpicking Gale on like certain things just to like
that was
drive him
after
out?
Yes, that was when he needed Jessie.
Okay, so that was after that
thing. For sure. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I just read it differently. I feel like in a way, like maybe like in terms of like Walt's like his business or like his motivation sense, that definitely is the reason why he wanted Jessie in there. But I even think beyond that, like a part of him, I think, like
for sure,
subconsciously wanted Jessie in there because those memories they had during season 1 and season 2 where they were cooking together, and like it's almost like sort of like. It doesn't creepy but weird how like he formed those connections with Jessie.
You're right. I don't think it's black and white that he only needed him for business or wanted him personally. I think he feels that he's responsible for Jessie.
Yes,
because a lot of his actions have led Jessie down the path that he's going. Jessie wasn't a murderer before he met Walt. Jessie did way worse stuff after he met Walt than before. And especially with Jane.
Oh God, yeah.
He feels he feels so guilty about that.
I mean, we'll talk about that later. Specifically, him feeling guilty about that in one of the episodes. But yeah, definitely.
So I think that's the connection that he has is through those things.
Yeah, that's very fair.
No. Maybe you probably are right, because Gus asked Walt, why are you sticking with this guy?
Yeah.
And Walt said, because I need him, because he does what I say. But I don't think he actually meant that.
No,
at least at that point.
Because Jessie, even in season 1 and season 2, pain in the ass. Like he fucked up almost everything, and he didn't really like. It literally, the bathtub scene is an example of that. Like, he literally couldn't even follow basic orders. So I think in a way, like, I think Walt said, when he said he needed him, I think, like, maybe, like, he was saying, like, he needed them as an assistant. But I think he actually, like emotionally needed him. Like, he really needed that to cook. Because without him, it just didn't have the same sort of passion, I guess. But, I don't know. I guess there are scenes later on that might disprove that. But I don't know. But,
after 4 days out, they were certainly closer.
Yes, definitely.
And I remember Jessie being genuinely really excited when Walt's cancer was in remission.
Yeah.
More excited than Walt.
Oh yeah, yes. Jesse's intentions throughout the show. Again, not to say he's this like
relatively speaking.
His intentions are pretty pure. I mean, maybe actually more as the show goes on, but his connection to Walt isn't really selfish because it doesn't need to be. He really doesn't need Walt for anything. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Didn't he say something? He said something about you need me more than I need you.
Jessie said that to Walt.
Yeah, I remember him. That's one of the only times he called him Walt too, instead of Mr. White.
Mr. White.
I don't remember exactly when that was though.
Now that you mention it, I never really thought that he never really called him Walt. He did always call him Mr. White. Huh. I guess because he was his teacher, so that's just like...
he always just called him Mr. White, which I thought was pretty cute because, because technically he was a student.
Yeah.
So I keep forgetting that fact somehow because I never see them as that. But
Yeah.
no, this is, imagine you went to high school and you have this chemistry teacher, right?
Yeah.
And then years later, you meet up with them again.
And then years later, you
all
have
that
real
happened.
chemistry. Huh?
And I mean, it's so, yeah, when I meet teachers that I had in high school, I don't call them by their first names. I call them
I still
Mr. or Mrs.
same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I guess that's a good point. But yeah, and I guess like him calling him that throughout the show, like, is almost, when does he not call him that? What scene is it? Do you remember?
I don't know, but they're in the RV and Walt is talking about separation of business, that it's not first season, because there's a scene similar to that.
Yeah.
But they're having some sort of argument and Jesse's like, look, without me, you can't get you can't get this meth sold.
Right.
I can still get meth without you.
Yeah.
It just won't be as good. So you need me more than I need you, Walt. He says that.
Yeah. That's actually a really good.
I don't remember where it was at all though.
That's a really good scene to talk about. Like again, like their relationship, because like that is kind of true. Jesse really, he's never like dependent on Walt that much, like in terms of like, at least like emotionally. So like it's super interesting how that almost makes his intentions more pure. Like when he cares about Walt and stuff, he's not doing it for himself or for anyone else. Or I guess I should say he's not doing it for himself. He's doing it because he kind of genuinely cares about Walt. So,
and we really do see that is really true, that Walt needs Jesse more than Jesse needs Walt, especially first half of season 5.
Yes.
With that argument they have when Jesse's really trying to go, but Walt is so insistent that he stays.
Yeah. The attachment.
Yeah.
And it is after Jesse leaves, he does a few cooks without Jesse. He does some with Todd, but after that, like, it doesn't last very long. Like he gets what he needs, he gets the money, and he's out. And I don't know if that necessarily has to do with Jesse not being involved in it, but it could. I don't know if that was intentional.
It had more to do with, there was I think it was 8 months or so montage of him and Todd getting more and more money and working with Lydia and all this stuff. And then finally Skylar's like, how much you started
when they went to the money in the storage container, and they were just like, she was just like, I have no earthly idea. And she was like, I couldn't launder this much money with 100 car washes. And he was like, all right, I'm gonna stop now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I guess I didn't think about that, but I guess, oh boy. Oh god, this could be rough. Do we want to talk about Walt and Skylar's sort of relationship, if you could even call it that?
Sure. Yeah, that's a really interesting topic.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that
people
stands
have
out
contentious
for that,
opinions.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's the biggest thing that stands out for me, is like so many people going through the show absolutely hated
Perfect,
Skylar.
because I was just going to talk about
hated
that. Yes,
Skylar.
let's talk about that.
Did anyone hate Skylar?
No,
like that?
God no.
No, I did not hate Skylar.
Skylar is the most.
No,
I disliked a few decisions she made when it comes to Ted, but like other than that,
even then I was.
No,
I
did not hate Skylar.
We were talking about this, Connor and I. The moment we were talking about, like, the moment where we like stopped rooting for Walt, or like it became hard, like we couldn't justify it anymore. And for me, it was when Skylar got involved. It just like the way like he derailed her life and like his like literal cancerous effect on her. Like I think what it is a lot of people watch his show and they connect with Walt because he's the protagonist, and anything standing in his way, like Skylar, they view as something they don't like annoying. And I saw this interesting thing where like people were like, oh, I don't mind Skylar in season 4 because she's doing literally everything Walt tells her to do. So it's like, almost like when she's like opposing him, people don't like her. And I think I don't know, there could be some societal reasons behind that I'm not really know. But I don't know. I think people's hates towards Skylar, it's just like you're missing the point. I'm not saying you have to like be like, oh, Skylar's the best character in the whole show, but I'm saying if you sort of like view Skylar as a non-sympathetic character and someone who is an obstacle, maybe the show wants you to view her like that, and that's sort of the intention. But if you don't view that as like, I don't know, a problem, then you're kind of maybe missing the point of the show. But I mean, Jesus Christ, their relationship just it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch.
So she was so ready to end of season 2, right? So there's the big problem with the show is when she finds out, why doesn't she go to the police? And I remember apparently the writers struggle with that, right? Because season 3, she learns that he's dealing with meth and stuff like that. And the whole reason she stayed with him and ends up helping him. And a lot of people don't put this in mind when they think about, well, why did she go along with all this? Is that she's been married to him for so long, way longer than we've ever seen.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
I don't know for how long, probably a couple decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so she obviously really loves him, and even though he's turning into this monster, it's hard to let go of those previous years that she had with him.
Of course. And you said, like, people say, why didn't she go to the police? Didn't she? Didn't the police come to her house in one episode?
When she was trying to get him out of their house. But he called her bluff because he knew that she wouldn't talk to the police.
But the police did offer, they're like, if anything is going on that you have, like, tell us now. And she wouldn't do it. And I don't think that's necessarily, like, if anyone thinks that's a writing mistake, like, they're missing
No. It's not. No, they solved the problem, which was, Walter Jr. would never look at his dad the same way again.
Yeah.
He only has, he doesn't have that long to live anyway. And then all these justifications.
And then when Hank ends up getting the hospital, she sees the opportunity to use that payment, or his money to treat Hank, right? Which, by the way, like, the levels of irony behind that, beautiful.
Love how that came back.
Beautiful, and it comes back, in season 5. I love that. I love that. It's just so beautiful. It's like, it's this beautiful irony. How Hank is trying to stop Heisenberg, and Heisenberg is funding him, trying to stop him, funding his recovery so that he can stop him. It's just like a beautiful, beautiful, ironic, like, circle there. I love it.
I think the moment that Skylar's really not going to leave and really becomes a part of the business is the moment it was revealed that she never signed the divorce papers.
Yes.
And then right after that, she starts laundering the money through the car wash.
Oh, yeah.
That's really when she's committed. That's when she really can't go to the police or anybody because it would involve her.
Right.
I really love, like, the parts at the ending of the series when in the last few episodes, in Ozymandias, when Walt calls Skylar and gets the blame taken off of her.
Yes.
That's one of his best things that he ever did for her. And then when he finally admitted in their final scene together that he did it for him.
Oh, yeah.
Not the family.
Yeah. That was a huge moment.
Absolutely massive.
That was a huge moment. Yeah. And even early on, I really like in season 1 their conflict that they have together, where, like, Walt has cancer and she wants him to get treatment, but he doesn't. I enjoy that little conflict there, because it sort of, like, shows their. I mean, it definitely shows how Walt wants to be viewed and how that's so important to him, and then it shows that Skylar really does care about Walt and how his life is important to her, and that sort of contrasting nature between the two of them. And I think that is evidence towards, like, why she wouldn't turn him in. I mean, like, honestly, like, right now, I'm being, like, and I know this isn't, like, necessarily, like, used in, like, an argument for a film analysis or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, if my mom, like, right now, like, someone was like, yo, your mom's been dealing meth for, like, the last, like, 4 years, you gotta go turn her in now, I'd be like, do I have to? Can I talk to her and try to fix it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so it's that sort of, I mean, there's that sort of, I don't know. I mean, characters aren't robots, and I don't know. But, yeah, anyway, yeah, I mean, their marriage, put quotations around that. Their relationship just, it's so, derails so quickly, and watching it, it's not fun. Right, like, it's not a fun time, and
anytime you see Skylar and Walt on the screen together in the later seasons, it's just like
so painful.
Especially mid part 1 of season 5. That whole
right after
her in the pool,
right after he kills Gus, and she's just like, "What is like?" He's gone over the edge now.
Yeah, which the pool scene. Yeah, well, that's what. Yep. Yeah, and her efforts to, like, protect the kids, and how she will do literally anything to protect them. And that's until the cancer. And they basically have like a chess game almost.
Yep.
That they're playing with each other.
Yeah, so going back to what you said about season 1 about him arguing that he didn't want to have treatment because he wanted to have his whole life he hadn't had control of where he was going in life,
Right.
and now he finally has that. That's the whole series right
That
there.
is, yeah.
Is that and then also
No, I was just gonna say I'll let you talk. I swear, but I was gonna say in my video for season 5, I use that scene to basically say like this is where the show kind of starts, and that it almost like mirrors the final interaction they have with each other. But go ahead.
and it's crazy that in season 1 she's arguing that she wants as much time with him as possible, and then in that scene right after the pool, she's arguing that she wants as little time with him as possible. She's just waiting for the clock to stop ticking and him to for his cancer to come back. And I love that it zooms in on the watch at the end of that episode.
Speaking of that, I love that. Yeah, she's like, time is what is like. I'm just waiting for the time, and I love then the gift that Jessie gives Walt for his birthday is a watch. It's like, it's beautiful symbolism right there.
And after that scene, she starts smoking around the house.
Yeah.
And so great.
Yeah. It almost.
And then she's back on his side after the season, the part 2 of season 5.
Right, because he leaves. Yeah. Well, he's just.
Well, no. It's when Hank's confronting her and Walt passes out in the restroom. She says that she's by his side. Somehow he got her back on. Yeah. Just crazy stuff.
Well, I think because the children aren't necessarily in immediate danger anymore, and I also think she throughout the show, like she's not like, it's not like once she figures everything out and all the shit starts going down. I don't think she's ever like, man, I don't want to like this guy. Like I don't want to love Walt. Like she wants to, she just can't. She just like literally can't. And I think that scene, like at the very end of season 5, she's just so desperate and just so tired of everything that she just wants to move on and leave it and just like move on from it all. But yeah, no, their interactions are definitely amongst the most tense, amongst the most just nasty. Like there's moments where like, yeah, and actually, how you mentioned the smoking, like. There's moments like where she's like smoking and she's like doing all this stuff because of Walt, and everyone around her perceives Skylar as like the one to blame almost.
Oh yeah, Walt totally spins that when he's talking to Marie and talks about the cheating. Yeah, so the cheating on Ted, I'm much more sympathetic, I think, viewing that than others, because you got to understand that Walt has just forced himself back into Skylar's life. Yeah. He's forced himself back in the house. She can't go to the police because she doesn't want him to get in serious trouble. Yeah. And so Walt's doing stuff that she doesn't want to do, and so she lashes out. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, and I love that.
Yeah.
There's a particular point where she's in Ted's bathroom and she's standing on the heated floor and she puts a rug under her feet and stands on the rug instead over the floor because she just doesn't want to feel that she just doesn't want to feel Ted's floor anymore. And so obviously she regrets her decision.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever noticed that.
I'd never noticed that. No.
No, there's a scene because he has a heated floor and she puts the bathroom mat instead of the floor and she puts it on and she kind of just stands there.
No, I never noticed. I don't remember that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that scene though, oh my God, that's one of the most disgusting scenes where Walt like spins it with Marie to like, oh man, God.
He's the victim.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is he plays the victim out. There's even that one scene where it's his birthday. It's Walt's birthday, and like he's like eating the breakfast, and like Walt Jr.'s there, and she's like, she's like Walt Jr. to Skylar. It's like, Mom, why don't you like break up Dad's breakfast to like make the smile like you always do? Ha 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 ha. And then she just like gets up and does it like so.
Yeah, she made the 51 with like the mini one.
Like so like emotionally, like not even like with like no sense of like passion. Just does it, and it's almost like holy, like she's almost just like this, like just oh man, it's heartbreaking. It's like
speaking of that birthday scene, because he was expecting a party like in the shot where he opens the door and sees in the very first episode and he's surprised by Hank and Skylar and everyone's there. He opens the door and it's framed the exact same way, except this time he's expecting it and he looks around and no one's there.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
That's so beautiful. Oh, that's so beautiful.
And then the third time they repeat that shot, it's him with the full beard and the messed up hair,
Yes.
and opening the door, and it's all
trashed.
broken down.
Yeah.
His 3 birthdays.
Oh wow, yeah. Wow, I never thought about that. That was his birthday too, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, because he went to the diner and he made the. Oh my god, yeah.
His 3 times entering the door.
Yes.
Same shot,
Oh,
but
wow.
very different context.
Yeah, it almost like gets worse. Like it degrades, just like his life. It gets worse and worse every time. Like he has all the people there the first time, and then no one there the second time, and then nothing there the third time. It's like how it like breaks down. That's so. I never made that connection that it was his birthday to all those 3 days. Wow.
Speaking of him portraying himself as the victim, I think he really views him in a lot of the situations with, especially in season 4.
Yes.
With and end of season 3, where in his mind he had to do these things. He had to kill Gale because otherwise he'd be killed.
Right.
And he had to poison Brock because there was no other way he'd be killed. Stuff like that. When obviously you can always go to the police. That's never an option in his mind.
Right.
But there's
Well,
always
that's admitting defeat.
Exactly.
And he can't lose. Come on.
And Mike points this out beautifully right before he dies, is that everything could have worked if you shut your mouth and did your job. That's what Mike did. That's what, and the only reason Walt didn't do that was to save Jessie.
And I think the only reason he did that too is because that's what he's been doing his whole life, is shutting up and doing his job.
Exactly.
And he doesn't like his whole purpose now is like he doesn't want to listen to what boss at the car wash tells him to do.
He's so prideful.
His pride is. I mean, it's
that's the whole
repulsive.
Show, pride.
Yeah, it really is
it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's nasty. That shit's nasty.
I mean, he wouldn't take the charity in season 1. If he would have taken that, boom, show over.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was the pride,
and that's
he wouldn't take any of the online donations.
Well, they take that and funnel it. But I know what you mean. He wouldn't take it like. He wouldn't take it.
So upset.
He wouldn't take it without coming up with this elaborate like way to take it.
Right.
Because his family had to know that
he did it.
Wasn't it? Yeah, exactly. Obviously, at the end of the show, that doesn't end up happening. But even when he's talking to Gretchen and Elliot and talking about them giving the money, he says, if there are any lawyers' fees or anything, don't pay out of your own money. Pay out of mine. It's my money that I earned. He doesn't want any handouts still.
And that's a good point. And his sort of like he wants his family to perceive him as like the one that did everything. And I think it's in season 5 or something when Gus is dead and it's like on the news and Walt Jr. is watching it and he's like, oh wow, look what like he died and it's all because of what Hank did. And like you see like Walt's reaction. He's just like yep. Hank did that. He can't. He wants to take like all the credit for his family, and they just won't. They will never fulfill that desire.
He was so annoyed by the dinging of the donations coming.
Oh my God!
It was his money.
Yes,
he was so upset by the idea of charity.
Yes.
And even Skylar says, "You act like charity's a dirty word," and he really does.
Yeah, because for him, he wants to live that like. I mean, it's in season 1. They kind of like establish like that sort of like American dream mentality of where like he wants literally to get up, earn his money, and like provide for his family in like the very, like I guess, typical way you do it. He can't do it in a traditional way because he can't do it as a teacher and as a car wash whatever employee. So instead he has to turn to, meth to fulfill that desire. And it's only when he gets cancer that he's forced to do it. So, I want to talk about next. The thing I'm looking is the interactions, or I guess the relationship, whatever you want to call it, between Walt and Hank.
Yes.
And I love.
I was gonna bring that up when we were talking about character relationships.
Yeah, I love how that builds up because like I feel like throughout the show, like once Walt starts, I guess becoming Heisenberg, you could say, for lack of a better. His transformation starts. The first thing they set up is like oh, Hank is trying to stop Heisenberg, not knowing it's Walt.
Hank is a hero in an anti-hero's world.
Basic. Oh well, we'll talk about that actually. Yeah, that's one of my topics. Maybe we'll just get through it now. I don't know, but it's fine. Whatever. But yeah, no. That and what I really find interesting is how throughout the show, like they get closer and closer to like interacting with each other. And I guess not Walt and Hank, but Heisenberg and Hank. And there's like moments like the moment where with the RV where he's outside the RV and they're both in it, or like there's moments where they're trying to
My own private domicile, and I will not be harassed.
what's that in season 2?
Bitch.
There's a season 2 scene with is it Badger?
Well, there's the one at the
that's in legal trouble.
Yeah, Badger's in the trouble, and he's
Season 2, episode 8, Better Call Saul. Yeah.
yeah. It was in the Better Call Saul episode because it was on the bench.
Yeah.
And they had the fake Heisenberg, and they had to
Yeah.
sat down on the wrong bench, so
It's one
he
of my
had
favorite
to
scenes.
pull
And
up
like,
and
and
talk
like
to Hank. And
yeah, the pull
stall.
up and stall him. Yeah. Like there's so many cool moments like that, and then like you finally like when they start to like it's really the later seasons where we see their true interactions, at least in terms of like plot, like main plot points. And there's that one of my favorite scenes in the whole show is the one in season 4 where they call back to in season 5 where they're looking like they're in the like I think they're in Hank's house. And he's
Hank's bedroom.
Yeah, he's showing him all the
Hank's bedroom.
Gale stuff, and he's like, "WW, who could that
WW.
be?" Like Walter White, and then he's like, "You got me!" Like it's just such a great scene. Love that scene.
What I find really interesting about that is when they call back to it in season 5, they're showing a slightly different take of Hank saying it's not the same one of him saying
Really?
Walter White. Yeah, in the season it's the same "you got me" from Walt, but he says Walter White a little more suspiciously. I don't know if they reshot it or if they just used a different take that they did when they were filming season 4. But it's just because I like comparing stuff that's supposed to be the same and putting them together.
Continuity.
But yeah, it's slightly different. It's a different take for sure. It's weird. I don't.
Interesting.
So I think
What
they
if that's
did that
intentional?
because. Oh yeah, for sure.
probably,
Because otherwise they would have taken it directly out of the episode.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I'm saying. The efforts. It's not. Yeah. Huh.
So I think it's because he's finally figured it out. Because he wasn't seriously suggesting
Right.
before
Right.
that it was Walter White, but then when he's thinking about it, maybe in his head he was more suspicious. I don't know.
I also really like that scene where they're Hank's moving like Walt shit. He's like, "What do you got? What do you got in the car?" And he's like, "Oh, like $500,000 in cash." Like, yeah, it's almost like a way of him. He knows that he won't face the consequences, and like almost like owning up to Hank, like manning up to Hank without Hank being aware of it. It's fascinating.
I remember reading discussion threads while the discussion threads from when the show was still airing, and people were wondering how in the world Hank didn't figure it out sooner, how he didn't fit the pieces together sooner. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he has a huge blind spot. He still views Walt as the guy from season 1.
Yeah.
As this guy who holds a gun like a glass of milk, guy who
because he's not there to see any of the changes. He's not.
No, he's not.
Skylar, like he doesn't see these changes happen, and for him, it's like I think in a weird way, like Hank. Not to say I don't think he really respects Walt. At least in like the beginning of the show, he doesn't really have much respect for him. He doesn't really view him as like. He almost views him as he doesn't view him as like a quote unquote like man, like what Walt aspires to be. He doesn't view him as that, and I think in a way that like doesn't raise any suspicions. But yeah, that's I think that's definitely why. I think
and Hank himself started out as what could have been a very one-dimensional character.
Yes.
As like, the rough and tumble police guy.
Oh, yeah.
But then as the show keeps going...
We can get into that right now if you want.
Yeah. And that's kind of his view of masculinity. And even that's kind of a facade because he's trying not to show the trauma because, real guys don't show trauma and stuff like that.
I mean, that's I'm sorry.
Yeah. I love the scene with him and Marie in the elevator when he just lets it all out finally.
Yes.
And when he's sitting on his bed. This is right before he gets shot by the twins.
Yes.
But and he's talking about that he's not the guy that he thought he was.
Yes.
Stuff like that. And they really added depth to a character.
I mean,
I remember not liking him in season 1.
Yeah,
and
same.
at the end of season 5, I cried my eyes out when he died.
I mean, we could talk about this right now. I mean,
we don't have to.
No. By we could, I mean, let's do it because why not? Because I have so many thoughts about Hank now. Hank almost lives out the hero's journey, but we don't see the story from his perspective. We see it from the villain's perspective. So like. Hank goes through this. He definitely absolutely does. I mean, we see him, he starts off as this kind of like misogynistic, like just like kind of like a stereotypical like douchebag cop you could imagine, right? And then like as as not a de-age or whatever, but as the show goes on, like we start to see like all this trauma he starts to experience, and in a way, he's one of the most emotionally vulnerable characters in the whole show, and he's very like sensitive. He has like he makes these like choices that wouldn't really make much sense. Like the choice, he has this like emotional connection to the case almost. So much so that like there become opportunities like, hey, you can now get a new job out of state, but you won't get to work in the Heisenberg case. Or later in the show, like, hey, you've been promoted. You now have more stuff to work on other than the Heisenberg case. But his attachment to that is so deep. Yeah. And I think it's rooted in a lot of like his emotional connection with it and the trauma he went through tackling the case. And I think that journey is very sympathetic. And I think it's a very like almost honorable
I remember he got sent to El Paso.
Yeah, his experience in El Paso changed him. Like
definitely. I don't even know if it changed him, but it almost revealed who he was too. But definitely changed him.
Yeah, but that was a lot of the reason why he was searching the different RVs to find the right one, and his boss said, Hank, listen, you're needed in El Paso. Are you going to do it, or are you going to keep doing this case? And Hank's like, oh, but I'm so close. Obviously, he's really into the Heisenberg case, but I think a lot of that decision was also because he really didn't want to go back to El Paso because of what happened last time.
Oh, absolutely.
He was really scarred by that. He had those panic attacks in the elevator.
Yes. And
he uses the excuse of doing this Heisenberg case. I mean, obviously, it's not one or the other. But
it's definitely a way to avoid it. But I also think there are choices he makes in which, like, he would be better off if he just went down this path instead of pursuing this case, and he sticks with the case because he's almost obsessed with it. And that obsession grows when he after he's bedridden and he starts like really really exploring it and how obsessed he becomes with it. And what I really like is when he becomes bedridden, like how his like masculine pride almost like how he lashes out at Marie. Like he gets so angry for her trying to help him because he wants to be independent. He wants to be this sort of like figure that almost Walt also wants to be, in a weird way, maybe for different reasons in different ways. But I love those scenes where he's lashing out at Marie, not because I'm like lash out at Marie, but because like it really I think gives a lot of depth to his character and how his masculine pride gets in the way. And what I really like is if you guys remember the scene, it's only like one scene. It's not like a really important. I mean, it's an important scene, but it's not really like a scene they really touch on or highlight a lot. But there's that one scene where that personal trainer comes over to Hank's house, and it's like this dude, and like when he comes over to help him, like he's all like like he's buddy with him, and he's all cool with him. But then when Marie inserts herself in, he's like he doesn't want to involve in it because he almost doesn't. He still has that like misogynistic sort of viewpoints where like he feels inferior almost to women taking care of him, but when men do it, it's almost like this weird complex that he has, and I really enjoyed that they explore that.
And then once that guy leaves, he's just, Marie, leave me alone. I think that also has a lot of fact that he's throwing on that kind of facade in front of the trainer.
Absolutely.
Of being like wanting to get through this and stuff like that. But he's really upset deep down that he can't walk.
He has no autonomy. Yeah.
And also, and we can see that with Marie having to change him and stuff like that. We talked about the obsession of the Heisenberg case before in season 4. I really don't remember this guy's name, but the guy came over and gave him Gail's notebook, but before that, he was obsessed with something else. He was obsessed with minerals.
The guys who brought the evidence over were no names. Were you thinking of Gomez?
No. It's not important, but the thing that he latched onto, because he doesn't like to just sit around doing nothing, was the mineral collecting. So then he could transfer. I know it's silly.
Wait, no, that's the scene I'm thinking of. They're not rocks, Marie. That scene's one of my favorites.
That's so synonymous with the show now. They're not rocks, they're minerals. But it really shows that once he's able to get back to police work, that's where he transferred all that built up energy from the mineral collecting and stuff back to back to doing the case. And some of my favorite scenes are the ones where Walt's driving him around and having to go to Los Pollos Hermanos.
Yes.
And
plant the tracking device.
It's such brilliant acting by Bryan Cranston that you can see he's nervous, but he also has to pretend like he isn't nervous.
Yeah.
And in front of Hank. And Hank is so oblivious to what's happening.
Yeah, it's comical.
It's so great. It's so great.
Yeah.
And Walt having to drive into traffic and
oh my god, yes.
And even after that, Hank doesn't suspect, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But again, it's blindsidedness.
Yeah. I mean, we could always talk about that scene. I guess this is like the less like subtle version where it just breaks out that scene between Walt and Hank where Hank like basically confronts him for the first time. That scene is where he like closes the garage door. That scene I was so tensed up that scene. And I almost was shocked it happened because like it felt like they were going to set up like, all right, they're going to kind of play this chess game almost. Like each one is sort of aware that the other one knows, but they don't really admit it. So they're playing like this chess game, but like Hank's approach is much less like tactical, like Walt's. It's just straight up. Like he literally punches him in the face. Much more brash approach.
If you don't know who I am, then I suggest you tread lightly.
Yeah, and that's the one scene. That's the one part in that whole scene where Walt kind of admits that, hey, I it's me, but he doesn't admit it at the same time. Like I said, he's playing a chess game.
Walt's put in a very difficult spot in that scene because he still doesn't. He should not admit to Hank that that's really what's going on, but he also wants to give a warning, and that was the perfect thing to say.
Right?
Is that if you truly don't know, because Walt says, Hank says, bring the kids over and then we can talk, and Walt gets all menacing and says that's not going to happen, and Hank's taken aback and he says, I don't know who you are, and Walt says if that's true, if you don't know who I am, then maybe your best course of action is to tread lightly. Yeah. And it walks that line of still plausible deniability.
Yes.
But also, if you really don't know who I am, then maybe back off.
Yeah. It's only until... oh, sorry, go
ahead. I think another show would have dragged that out of them.
Yes.
That game of cat and mouse and not confronting each other long for maybe even a season, but the pace of the second half of the fifth season is so fast compared to the rest of the show.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either. I think
it's not.
Yeah, and that's a good point, or really, I guess a good jumping off thing I want to talk about was with they're kind of like playing, even still they're still kind of playing chess games, like they're not like straight up like confronting each other, but then that scene, that dinner scene where they're out to dinner with Skylar and Marie, and they're all four of them are out. That scene is super tense. That scene is like they're in public and it's like anything could happen here, and where he gives them the tape, like that's one of my favorite scenes in the second half of season 5 for sure. Like it's just so tense and so.
The line that sticks out in my mind in that scene is Walt says, "What do I have to do to convince me?" And Marie what do I have to do to convince you that I'm telling the truth? And Marie says, "Why don't you kill yourself, Walt?" She just says it so casually.
Oh yeah.
And it really would. Again, it's another one of those things of, Walt, could you please just speed up your death? Gus wanted it. Skylar ended up wanting it. And Marie, it's.
Yeah. Maybe just oh man, that's a very chilling line.
Yeah, and at a certain point, Walt wants to die quicker. Again, this is going a little off topic, but going back to season 2, 4 Days Out, one of my favorites, when he comes back and it is revealed he thinks that he's getting worse, and he thinks that he only has 2 weeks to live, and so he goes on this big cookout with Jessie and gets all this meth done and stuff, and then he comes back and it's revealed that the big spot on his X-ray that he thought was killing him is actually just it was benign. It was, he was 80%.
Yes.
He was recovering really fast, and he's all happy around his family. And then he goes and he washes his hands, he washes his face, and he just has this fit of anger, and he punches this paper towel. And that's one of my favorites. That paper towel dispenser comes back in a beautiful way.
Does it?
And it does. Walt. Yeah, I'll come back to that in a second. But I love that, and a lot of people are confused. Like, why is he upset? his whole point is that he didn't want cancer, and now he might not even die. And to him, that's the worst thing possible. He's done all these bad things, and he thought he wasn't going to have to live with the consequences because he'd just die.
He didn't want to have to
but
deal
now
with
he
his
might
conscience.
actually have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. It comes back in season 5, where he's in the same place. He's washing his hands, and he looks at the paper towel, and he kind of smirks, and he goes, "Huh," and he walks off. And I think it's because he's viewing his old perspective on life, of not wanting to die. And at that point in the series, beginning of season 5, he doesn't want to die. He keeps wanting to grow his empire.
Yeah. If anything, yeah. Like, I mean, we could talk about this, and I mean, the whole show basically is about the death of Walter White, whether that be like literally his physical death or his also like death of as a person, like as a character.
Yeah.
And I think that by season 5, like Walt getting cancer and that being, that's not obviously what he dies from, but that being what will lead him to his death per se, let's just say, in terms of like the show where it starts off. I think that's really smart and a good symbolism, because Walt becomes cancerous. He becomes a cancer to everyone, and how he sort of almost like infects everyone. And like you said by the end of the show, he wants to grow his empire just like cancer. It wants to grow and spread. It wants to take its damage like further, right? And that's where Walt really, that's why, because in season 5, that's after the crawl space scene, he's no longer really Walt anymore. He's almost just like Heisenberg. He's almost that cancer, and he's almost like, him growing that empire is just like, Walt is dead, right? Walt wanted to die in a way. He's accepted his death, but Heisenberg isn't necessarily concerned about dying. He's concerned about growing. He's concerned about spreading. Yeah. And it's like that duality and contrast between the two personas, I think, is really interesting.
When his cancer comes back a second time, he really does want to fight it.
Yeah.
But when it happens the first time, especially in the episode The Fly, he talks to Jessie about there would have been a perfect moment for him to die, listening to his wife put his Holly to sleep on the baby monitor. He talks about that extensively, because right after that scene, he lets Jane die. And he knows that, man, if I would have just died at that moment, my family has money, everything's good.
Yeah.
But later his perspective is shifted, and he just wants to make money, and so he wants to live longer.
Yeah, he wants to.
It's an interesting perspective shift.
Yeah, because
he shifts from wanting to die to wanting to continue.
Yeah, like him wanting to die is almost, in a sort of distorted way, pure, but him wanting to live is almost evil. It's very interesting.
Yeah, because he wants to live to do bad things versus wanting to die before he does. It's like he knows the path he's going down.
Right.
Definitely. And he obviously feels so guilty about Jane. And so he's like, oh, that would have been the perfect time to die, because none of that would have happened. My family would have had money from the Gus deal, his first Gus deal.
Yeah.
And that would have been perfect. That's enough money. I would have just died. But he kept going. Gus convinced him to come back. The Jane thing happened. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Just such a fascinating character.
Yeah. I know. We could just talk about him the whole time. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's my favorite part of the show as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And the way that everything props that up.
Yeah.
It develops that. And
how all the characters change and grow or devolve because of
somehow, even after all the crazy shit he did, there are points where you still find ways to root for him. Like it's
exactly.
That's the show just twisting us. And I guess actually I brought this point up when we talked, Connor, on our little, and I really want to bring it up here because there's only spot I can bring it up, I guess, where it feels natural. But what I really like about this show is Walt's character is like how he manipulates everyone, and we see that. But there was one moment where that was really twisted onto me, and it was like a very personal sort of like, oh my god moment, where so like throughout the show we've seen like how he manipulates Skylar and how he manipulates even Walt Jr. and Hank and Jessie and all these characters, and you're almost like you see it from the perspective of Walt, so like you know that he's manipulating them. But there's this one scene in season 4 where Brock was poisoned and Jesse's pointing the gun at Walt, and Walt's like, do it, like just kill me, just do it, like I didn't do it, Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's trying to convince him he didn't do it. And you're watching that scene, and from your perspective, you're like, well, yeah, of course Walt didn't do it, right? Like, it was definitely Gus. Like, Walt wouldn't do this. So you almost are like, yeah, Jesse, listen to him. Like, Walt wouldn't do this. And then when it's revealed that he did do it, it's revealed that he was the one that poisoned him. It almost is like, wow, like, I've seen Walt manipulate Skylar. I've seen him manipulate everyone. He kind of just manipulated me. Like, it's almost, he does this like this meta moment where like, Walt just I feel manipulated. I feel used. And it's like, whoa, like it's such a brilliant scene and brilliant moment. And I love, it would have been such a mistake if they reveal that he poisoned Brock, and then you watch that scene and you see like you because that scene has so much more weight because you're not viewing it. That's like, you're not viewing it from Walt's perspective. You're almost viewing it from not necessarily Jesse's. You're viewing it from just a perspective that's a neutral perspective, I guess. And the fact that he twists it for you to root for him, it's like, it's so fucked up. And it really, when they reveal that, like, hey, Brock was poisoned by Walt, you almost are just like, I was, what?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't have any clue when I was first watching my first watch that that he was lying in that scene. I mean, that's the whole beauty of it.
Yeah.
Is Jesse throughout the season, from Walt's perspective, has acted in a irrational, emotional way, and so the audience has gotten used to viewing him that way. And now he's doing it again. He's blaming Walt for poisoning Brock. What? And middle of that scene, Walt's acting like he has no idea where Jesse could get this idea. And then Walt starts laughing, and even the music from the crawl space comes back.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I've been so dumb. It's been Gus. It's been Gus this whole time. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And the audience thinks that this is a big reveal too. But no, it's just Walt lying. Trying to get Jesse on his side.
And getting us on his side. It's fucked up.
Exactly.
It's so fucked up. It's like I've never seen a character like I guess I've seen characters that manipulate the audience or manipulate the story, but I haven't seen characters that like you follow them, manipulate everyone, and then they do it to you, and it's like you feel almost like betrayed in a weird way. It's kind of weird.
Exactly.
It's kind of very bizarre.
Yeah.
I had that moment.
I think the whole goal of the show, and I think I actually heard Vince Gilligan say this, is to try to get to people the point where people are rooting against Walt.
Yeah.
Which definitely for me ended up happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of season 5 I was rooting against.
Yeah. That's basically the moment.
For me, like, it went back to, honestly, I mean, it wasn't something where it was like, I am rooting for him, and now I'm not. It definitely was a gradual, like, shift.
Oh, for sure.
It was moments
Everything's gradual.
Yeah, it was moments where I was like, I'm rooting for him in this scene and not in this scene. Like, oh, Walt, get that money, get to the deal. Walt, why aren't you helping Jane? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it went from scene to scene. But, like, it did get, for me, it was when Skylar got involved that I really stopped rooting for him entirely. And then there were some moments maybe I went back to it, but that scene with Jesse and Walt, that was way after I stopped rooting for him. And I think that just because I took all the emotion out of it, and I'm like, I gotta root against this fucker. But like that moment, like I almost slipped back in because I was like, there's no way he would have poisoned Brock. But
yeah, because you have a common enemy, Gus. It's the same reason why after Ozymandias, a lot of people start rooting for Walt again when he's going after the neo-Nazis who are capturing Jesse, because he's doing a good thing again. And that is even after, everything before that. It makes sense.
Although the way I rationalize rooting for that is you're more rooting for Jack and his people to die than for Walt.
Yeah.
Rooting against
and
them.
obviously Jesse to escape. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's fair. But even
I've
then,
talked to...
it's Walt.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I've talked to people who've never stopped rooting for Walt, which is a really interesting perspective. And people who any obstacle to the main character is viewed. I mean, obviously Skylar, but not even that. But people who didn't like Jesse thought he was really whiny, wanted him to die, and people who didn't like Hank because he got in the way. Anything that gets in the way of the main character. It's a very weird view, and I don't think it's one that the creators really intended.
I think
how anybody could have kept rooting for Walt after he stole Holly in Ozymandias, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. No. I mean, I was way gone before that, but I agree. I know what you're saying. Yeah, no, for me, it's I think if I think maybe those people, and I'm not saying like you can't have your own perspective, but I think those people are just heavily missing the point of the show, because I don't think you're really supposed to root for Walt. And really, honestly, I don't think you're really supposed to root for Walt any point after he starts getting involved in meth. But
yeah,
well, yeah.
My second rewatch of the show was so different than the first. The first one, I think what the show does really brilliantly is it really shows you thinking in tons of moments. You can really see the rationale he has for basically all of his decisions. It makes sense, and it feels like, at least for me, the first watch, it feels like that what he does is usually the only option.
And genuine.
Like he had to do that. He was pushed into a corner. He had to do that. But then the second time I watched it, I remember there was a specific scene. It's when Jessie and Walt first see each other within the show.
Yes.
When Jessie falls out of the window and the music starts playing.
Yes.
I legitimately, and to be fair, I get emotional a lot when I'm watching movies.
You,
and
me
stuff.
too. So don't worry. I think this show has made me cry like 5 or 6 times. But
oh yeah, more than that for me. But that particular scene, which it has like a cool little Mexican guitar song in the background. And he sees Captain Cook and the stuff. It legitimately made me emotional because I viewed it so differently. First time I watched it, I viewed it as the beginning of a grand adventure. The second time I watched it, I viewed it as the beginning of the end for Jessie. I wish that they never would have encountered each other again. And I was so sad. It was crazy watching it again because everything that I thought in the first time I revisited, and I realized that there were so many things that Walt didn't have to do that he did. He didn't, one of the big ones being accepting. He didn't have to reject the money from Gretchen and Elliot. Right. Third episode, after he kills Crazy 8, he was supposed to be done completely. But then he gets sucked back into it because he realizes he still needs money. End of second season, beginning of third, for the first 5 episodes, he keeps telling Gus, no, I don't want to be part of it. Don't want to be a part of it. He gets sucked back in again. End of the 4th season, beginning of the 5th. He doesn't have to keep doing it, but he keeps doing it. And there's so many moments where he could have gotten out, but he himself is his own worst enemy. And it's just really interesting to watch it like that. With all that perspective of knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's way more, it's even way more tragic.
Yeah. Yeah. Man.
Jesse's the one that gets Walt to start cooking again in season 1, which is weird to think about.
Yeah. Fuck. That's such an interesting perspective. I really like that you shared that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably have. I mean, I there's no doubt in my mind by the time, by the end of my life, unless just comes out of nowhere, which could happen. Stay inside. No, but I'm just saying that I will definitely watch the show again, and I'm very excited for when I do, and it will probably be a while. I'll give it years because I want to wait and sit on it for a while. But when I do watch the show again, I probably will watch it with someone. I'll probably find someone who I'm like, you ever see Breaking Bad? And they're like, no, and I'll forcibly kidnap them and force them to watch it.
That's the best way to watch it.
Yeah.
It's through a new set of eyes. It's crazy how much perspective that gives on you.
But yeah, no, exactly. That's how I do that with a lot of shows, actually. I mean, Bob can attest to that.
Yes.
Yep. I got him to watch many shows just so I could...
the video games, too.
Yeah, just so I could rewatch them again. Like, I'm like, I need to rewatch this show. I need an excuse. But I'm very excited for that. Because even with Bob, we were over your house and your brother was watching the show, and I was rewatching some episodes, and I noticed different things and had a whole different perspective on it, and I was like, man, like, it's just it's hindsight really is just, it really awakens everything.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, you want to talk about something I don't like about the show?
Oh sure, yeah, we've been praising
it, and it's pretty much everything I love about the show. There's just one scene I really, really do not like, and I understand the intention behind it. I understand the point behind it, and everyone has explained it to me, and I understand. But God, I don't like the plane scene. I don't like that scene at the end of season 2.
That's a lot of people's complaints.
I hate that scene. Like, I really just, I understand what they were going for, but I didn't even, like, people were saying, like, the point is, so basically what happens is Jane dies. Her dad obviously is affected. He works at a control center for airplanes. He is kind of dealing with the grief of his daughter's death. So because of it, in other circumstantial events, 2 planes hit each other over Walter, and they fall all over him in his house. And I understand the symbolism behind that. I understand what they were going for, but I don't think like it needed to be that overt, because I think we've already seen that. We've already seen Walt have all this effect on people's lives and how they've changed their lives. And I didn't think we need this like kind of just like plane crashing where it just kind of felt like very like, I can't explain it. It's like it's something that felt like it was like sort of forced, and like it was almost like,
it felt sudden, right?
Grand, like it was like
oh yeah,
I don't know, it was like this, like it was almost like I was watching like a Marvel movie or something. I'm like, we don't need this like great spectacle to see that Walt has this profound negative effect on people's lives. I don't know, and I just thought it was kind of stupid.
Yeah, I know a lot of people's problem with that scene is that there were so many foreshadowing to it with the black and white scenes, and it shows 2 body bags, and obviously people are just wondering who it is, who are the people who are in those body bags, and it ends up being 2 random people who are in the plane.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are upset for that angle. Some people don't like it because the CGI is bad.
Yeah, that's true. It is bad.
And I honestly, I think all that's valid. It never actually had bothered me. And I think
I do also like the added reveal. Well, not the reveal. The foreshadowing from the titles of the episodes.
Yes.
Where the cold opens was 737 down over ABQ.
Yeah.
And going back after that, it's like, oh my god.
That's amazing. The foreshadowing build up to it was amazing. And I'm not saying like I don't want to like make it clear, because I love campy stuff, and I love like the scene where remember in season 4 where Gus dies and he walks out with his face all like blown up. That scene is that scene is super cartoonish, but I love it. Like, I think it's perfect. Like the last thing he does is like fix his tie, because like he's always been about his presentation and his facade. But I really love that. Like, I don't mind campy, cartoony stuff. I love that. But I just feel like here it was a little too much. Like, it didn't really feel like it fit. And there's a lot of moments in the show that, it's a TV show. And there are moments where like you could argue that like a lot of like what would be Deus Ex Machinas, or a lot of like writing stuff that gets characters out of certain situations. Almost like you could argue that there's maybe like fate to this show. Like Walter White has a fate, and the universe is trying to like guide him towards that fate. And that could be argued, and I'd actually maybe agree with that. But this scene just doesn't feel necessary to me, and it almost just feels a little bit too like, it feels like the show's like, all right, we're in season 2. We really need to show the negative effects Walt has on other people's lives, even if it's like not direct, like very indirect. So let's do this to show them that. And I feel like that it wasn't necessary. I don't know.
For me, it's obviously the plane crash wasn't actually his fault. It was a series. He did start the series of events, but that doesn't make him responsible whatsoever. I think the reason why I'm okay with this scene is because of the effect it has on him afterwards. To him, it feels like it's directly his fault, even though it's not. He feels so guilty. He burns his money and quickly snaps out of it. That eyeball from the teddy bear represents quite a bit.
Yes.
Looking at him from under the bed.
Oh
especially because if you really think about it, that teddy bear represents a kid who was on the plane.
Yes.
Which is really tragic.
Yeah.
And that's why I like highlighting the teddy bear so much, is because it's not just that it was a passenger plane, I believe, but that there were kids,
right?
And that's
right,
and obviously that eats away at Walt. That whole scene in the gym when he's talking, he's trying to make himself feel better. He's rationalizing that it wasn't as bad as it actually was.
Yeah, that scene is
like
hard to watch.
So I do like all the fallout from that, but the actual scene itself. I think there were some complaints even when it came out that it was a little too silly, and so I think they tried to deal with that with season 3 with it actually meaning something.
Yeah, well, no, I actually don't even mind the foreshadow, the meaning behind it. Yeah, and I get what it's going for. It's saying like Walt didn't directly kill these people, but just like a cancer, like it affects everybody, right? Like when cancer kills somebody, it affects tons of people around that person, and I get what that's what they're going for here. But I think it was just too overt, and it was too like. Oh. Yeah. Like two planes just crashed. Like wow, like it just. I feel like they could have done something that was like almost felt a little more grounded. And again, I don't mind. No pun intended. I don't mind cartoon stuff. I like it, but it didn't do it for me.
Ooh, I'll say the biggest thing I don't like about the show.
Let's go.
I think the twins are too cartoony.
Fair.
I think they're just. It's just typical, like no talking, walk away from explosion.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Literally,
I think it was kind of hard for me to take them seriously. I think it was better on rewatches because the tone of the show isn't necessarily completely grounded.
Yeah,
obviously.
Oh no, definitely not.
And while I can excuse it with Gus because I think that character triumphs realism in that point of view because it tells us just a little smidgen more.
I think
he's true to his character till the end.
I think character
adjusting
triumphs,
his tie.
Realism in every situation. And I don't, in no way would argue the show is realistic or needs to be.
But no, it doesn't need to be at all.
I do agree with that though. Those characters almost feel like tropes and a means to an end.
Yeah, it just felt a little too unnecessary.
Although that I will admit that scene in the hospital where one of the twins alive like crawls towards the door as Walt's looking at him that's an amazing scene. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I like that. I like how no one. Some people were like, well, how did they not know?
Yeah.
He could have been doing anything. But was. I have very few complaints. I was thinking about that going into this conversation. Yeah. We're going to talk about everything we like, but is there really something I really dislike? I think. But no, that's about it, honestly.
Yeah, for me, it's the plane scenes, my big thing I really do not like. And there's probably some moments that I'm like, like there's some moments where I'm like, that, but very little, like to the point where it's not even really, it just doesn't matter. It's so minuscule.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe the Marie stuff with the kleptomania didn't really lead anywhere, but I feel thinking about it because she had that in season 1 and then beginning season 4.
Yes,
but I think it really does demonstrate. Thinking about it more and more, I didn't really care for it when I first watched it, but I do think it still serves a purpose. I can see where the writers were going with it. They were showing the different levels of crime.
Yes,
and people's reaction to it.
Yes,
because I remember Skylar having such a strong reaction talking to Walt about kleptomania in season 1, and she was like, I can't believe she would do that. And Walt's sitting there over like,
oh, did you cut out? I think you cut out there.
Oh, can you still hear me?
Yeah. What did you say? You
okay. Oh, I said Walt's. Skylar was complaining about Marie doing the kleptomania, and Walt's sitting over there like he's doing way worse stuff.
Yeah.
And he knows that if that's her reaction to that, then she's never going to accept him doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
And then it comes back in season 4, and I can't quite remember if there was a point to that. Her stealing the spoons and going to the realtor.
Well, I think the point of that was that was the point where Hank was recovering.
Right. Yeah.
And that was her almost a way of coping with that and dealing.
She was lashing out, just like Skylar lashed out with her.
She has no way of she's almost like suppressed in the household, and that's her way of almost like dealing with that. And in a way, I mean, we could get into this. We could, but maybe we shouldn't. But I'll bring it. I'm going to bring up an argument without getting too much into it, which may be annoying, but I don't care. I think in a lot of ways, Marie, in a lot of different ways, very similar to Walt. Like in terms of I think they're more similar than people might give them. They might think about it. Like, I guess I'll say they almost do use crime to deal with personal baggage and feelings and desires. Yeah. And also the way they deal with Skylar in season 5, they do the same thing. They try to take Holly away. Marie tries to do it.
Yeah, I've never thought about this.
And then that foreshadows, Hank doing it. I mean, not Hank, rather Walt doing it. They both sort of are very brash, and they both sort of deal with sort of their issues, I guess, in the same way. But obviously, Walt does it on a way larger scale.
There is this much pettier crime.
Much pettier, and I think that is, I actually kind of like Marie a lot. And when I first saw, like in first season, I kind of was like, man, what's really the point of her? I didn't really, whatever. Like she just kind of, she didn't really do it for me. But as the show went on, I actually kind of like, especially in that season 4 scene where she's going to people's houses and not even taking stuff, but she's almost living out a fantasy. She's like living out like, oh, my husband does this and we have kids and blah, blah, blah. Like living out this life she almost wants to be living to sort of feel a sense of happiness, I think. And that
because she's not happy as Marie right now.
And just like Walt, he almost isn't happy with his life. You know, he's this high school teacher and Eric's at a car wash. Like they both sort of use these crimes to sort of, I guess, break out and express themselves differently, obviously in different ways. But I think that I sympathize with Marie a lot in that scene, in that episode. And it's a very one-off thing that kind of happens and they never really bring it up again. But I think it was a good job to maybe make that comparison and to flesh out Marie more. So she likes purple.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's the same way Skylar lashed out with Ted.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So. She was trying to escape from her.
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's about it.
Yeah.
I mean, unless we want to talk about a little bit about the ending, which I like.
Oh, we're going to get to it. The ending of the show, you're saying? Oh, we're getting to it. I have a few more things I want to
Oh,
discuss.
yeah, for sure.
My next question is, and this is a question, and I mean, the answer is going to be no, and that's fine, but I just want to like bring it up less of a question that has an answer and more of like one of those like questions that it's not about the answer, it's about the question. Okay. Do you guys think Breaking Bad is sort of a comedy? Because I'd argue in a lot of ways Breaking Bad, in its irony and in its like dark humor ways, it a lot of moments feels like a comedy. And I'm not saying that like the genre isn't like drama, you know what I mean? But I'm saying like, the show could in some cases be viewed as a comedy. I think. I would argue.
So first season, very much. I think what they were going for was a very dark comedy. Yeah. First season, especially compared to everything else, that was very heavily.
Yeah, because you have the stuff like the fight between Badger and Jessie in the RV, and
with the crossbow
and and when he picks up Jessie and does the helicopter, knocks all the shit off the fucking all the cook stuff. So there's like some like slapstick in there and that kind of thing. So like, yeah, definitely first season.
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of the second season too. I think as the show goes forward and it does actually get darker and darker, I think there are less comedic moments. There are still comedic moments. But I think especially I remember a lot of people describing the first season as a very dark comedy.
Honestly, at least from my perspective, I can't even count on my hand how many times in this show there were scenes where I go, should I be laughing? Like that's what I said. Like, should I, like, everything in my mind is telling me don't laugh at this, but should I be laughing? Like, that happens constantly, all the time. And that's like perfect dark humor for you. If you if you ask yourself, should you be laughing? And then it's dark humor. But like, for me, it's, I don't know.
That was me with Ted tripping over the carpet. That was
that's out of my mind exactly. Yes,
not knowing with the laugh or not.
Yeah, that's a scene. There's so many of those. I can't even name a lot of them. There's a lot of them with Saul. I mean, Saul is a comedic character in a lot of ways, but there are even moments where Saul will do fucked up shit, and you're like, should I be laughing here? Like,
oh yeah, for sure. That's a lot of his point. They introduced him latter half of the second season.
Yeah.
Well, I think with some needed life into the show, just like another character to add onto the roster that really adds a different perspective and is for sure for most of the show the punchline and the comedic relief. Yeah, which is. And again, I'm not going to get into this, but watching the other show, it's insane. It's insane how much depth there is to that character. And I'm not saying that lightly. However, for this show, he doesn't have much depth. And there's a reason for that, but I'm not going to go into it. Anyway, but I think that, for sure. The comedic relief comes to that character.
Another example of a moment where I'm like, should I be laughing is like the ATM scene. Like, it's like, this isn't funny, but it's like, should I be laughing? Yeah. Like, there's so many moments like that where it's like, like, it's like, this isn't really funny, but you can't help but like I don't know. It's just how the show presents it. I really like that. I think it does a really good job with that.
A lot of people for that's the crawl space scene, just because.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier.
It's just a weird image.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. Yeah. So I mean, if we want to talk about very specific episodes, we can. I have 2 episodes specifically I wanted to talk about, and then I just want to talk about the ending, if that's cool.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know. I really want to talk about The Fly because
Absolutely.
That is probably if not my favorite episode of the show, very close to being my favorite episode of the show, or maybe the show that and this sounds a little like condescending, but the episode rather that I have the most respect for. Like I feel like what it pulls off really well.
Yeah.
And you were talking about earlier about like guilt and I mean this episode is all about Jesse's and Walt's relationship, and they're down and Walt's sort of like spiraling out of control and sense of control of everything, including like something as simple as a fly. And oh man, I don't know if you guys want to say stuff, but
sure,
I have so much to say.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, wait. Before we do that, Bob, do you like this episode, Bob? I forgot.
Which I'm sorry, I got very distracted. What was
The Fly?
Oh yeah. I absolutely love this episode. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I definitely have like a favorite like moment in the episode. But I think in general the episode is fine.
Yeah.
One moment in particular makes it stand
Oh,
out.
speaking of comedy, this is one of the funniest episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, you watch it and you're like, should I be laughing? Like it's not like it's funny, but it's like almost sad and like it's spiraling out of control right in front of you.
I think it's a good resting spot to just kind of focus on these characters and where they're at right now, because it does a lot with Walter's mindset. It does a lot with where Jesse's at. And I think it's obvious to me that what the fly specifically represents is Walt's guilt. I don't know if there's, I mean, obviously there's other interpretations in the fact that the fly is still at his home.
Yeah.
Even after he told Jesse he was sorry, he thought maybe that would get rid of that guilt.
Yeah,
and it's especially nailed in the fact that the next time we see the fly is right after he kills Mike.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously he's feeling the same feelings about Jane, about Mike.
Yeah, and his obsession over trying to literally squash that guilt is what almost drives him insane and drives him over the edge in this episode.
Exactly.
And I just like Jesse's sort of, involvement in it. And I mean, even outside of like where this episode stands and like the contextual, what's going on outside this episode around the show, I just think this episode, how it's shot, like how it's presented, almost like this like bottle episode. I have a huge appreciation for it. I think it does a really good job of like, exploring. And what I really like is at the end of the episode, they're kind of not, like you said, like the fly is still there, but not even that. Like Jesse and Walt aren't like good now. Like they kind of leave on bad terms. Like they're not like,
they do.
Their relationship is
Jesse's stealing from Walt.
Yeah.
And he still doesn't admit it. And Walt's, I think, honestly, looking out for Jesse's safety and saying, listen, you cannot steal from these people. And Jesse's saying, I'm not stealing anything, which is obviously false.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's obviously it was done for budgetary reasons. But I think it honestly was for the better, because it's that episode is everything that I like about the show. It's the characters and the dialogue and everything supporting that.
And that moment, and I'm sure this is what Bob was hinting at, that moment where he almost basically admits to Jesse that he killed Jane is like super powerful.
Yeah.
It's like and speaking of tensing up, oh my god.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
I remember the first time I was like, oh no.
Yeah. Definitely.
I actually feel bad for Walt in that moment though, because obviously if you think about that moment with Jane, that is such a split second. You do it or you don't, and you have 5 seconds to decide. And I love that scene so much with Jane is because in his face, you can see him weighing the options. You can see him right before he reaches out, go back and say, wait a second, and weighing the pros and cons in his head. I just think the acting is phenomenal in that scene. And it all ties, and he says very flat out, I wish I never would in The Fly.
Well, you cut out.
You know, the night where he says he wished he never would have left the house that night and met Jane's dad in the bar.
Yeah.
He you know, which
Right.
obviously, because he wishes he would have died right there on that night.
Right.
Before that happens. That's a very clear cut. He
Yeah.
regrets what he did.
Right.
And especially after seeing what what it does to. I'm sorry. I just remembered a scene I really wanted to bring up that has direct correlation with this. So Jessie wakes up and finds that, you know, Jane's gone, and Jessie goes off to a drug den, and Walt has to get him from that drug den. And Jesse's saying, you know, I killed her, it was me, which, to be fair, he was the one that got drugs. But Walt's thinking the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Is that it was him. And Jessie, he's saying, Jessie, you didn't cause any of that. And he's trying to make him feel better, but he's also says it. One of my favorite scenes in the entire show, which is strange because it's a very small scene, is there's a news broadcast that goes to Walt's house, and they're talking about how many donations he's getting on.
Yeah.
And so it was supposed to be just a newspaper thing, but now the TV men are here, and Walt has to sit down with his family, and there's a zoom in on Walt for it's a long take. And Walter Jr. is just answering questions about how great his dad is. He always thing. And this is right after the Jane episode, right? And it's just zooming in on Walt, and you can see it on his face how sick he is, how just guilt-ridden. Hearing his son saying how that he always does the right thing, and he's such a great man after he's done this monstrous thing.
Right.
That's one of my favorite parts.
Damn.
Yeah. And there's a lot of overlooked scenes like that, which I never hear discussed because it's such a big show.
So much, yeah. Even now, like, I'll be like, hey, let's talk about something like this, and I think of like 30 scenes, and I'm like overwhelmed almost.
I have a couple things which you can talk about later that I've never heard discussed, and but we can get to that.
If you want, we could just bang out these next two things and then do that for the very end, and we can call it.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about that scene where Jessie, or Walt almost admits to Jessie that he killed Jane, and I love how you're talking about how he feels guilty there, but then he has no problem telling him that in Ozymandias, and that's what I want to talk about now. Is that episode? Oof, what a transition.
So
what a segue, so natural. Nice. Didn't force that one at all. No, I was just gonna say. It's like so interesting, the series of events that happens to get Walt to become such a, like, that compassion to disappear, or that sense of guilt to disappear for when you tells him that just to hurt him. He has like no reason to tell him.
Absolutely. I have a lot of thoughts on this specific part. So obviously second half of season 5, he really hasn't wanted to kill Jeff.
Yes.
But then he realizes it's inevitable, especially when he tries to talk to Jessie, and Jesse's like, I'm going to hurt you where you really live, because he thinks that Walt has a bodyguard, even though it was just a guy picking up his little girl.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think this is right after the death of Hank. A lot of people wonder, why does he still want Jessie dead? Even though, or why is he okay with all of this after the relationship?
Yeah.
He is furious after Hank dies. He's obviously, he falls down in grief, just very reminiscent of when Gus does in the flashback. I love those two mirrored shots. But anyway, and he's so angry. He gets up and he's very angry. He doesn't take it out on Jack.
No.
But I believe that he blames this whole situation on Jessie.
Yeah.
And so he legitimately is ready to see Jessie die, right? Jack says with a gun to Jessie's head, you want me to do this? And Walter gives a slight nod, and they're about to do it before.
And Todd is the only one that saves him.
Yeah. And so Todd's like, well, we can get more information out of him. And Jack's like, is that cool? And Walt sees the reason in the situation and says, yeah, but he still wants to hurt Jessie besides killing him. And so that's his second choice besides death.
It's almost the way he copes is to hurt people, which is, evil, but
he wants to get back at, for Hank dying.
Right.
And since death isn't an option anymore, that's the second best thing, is saying the words that'll hurt Jessie the most, which is that's what he can think of at the time.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't realize that until like a second rewatch, but I was like, oh yeah, that's why. I was wondering why he went back and mentioned that. But no, it makes, because that's the only thing that Jesse doesn't know. He knows that he poisoned Brock. He knows all these little secrets that he kept from him.
Right. Oh man, I mean, just this episode, Ozymandias. There's so much here. Like, there's so much. I don't know what we can even cover. There's so much.
This might be my favorite episode.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's either The Fly or this. I think The Fly is probably the episode I have the most like artistic respect for, and I appreciate it for what it does. I think in terms of like an episode that like the thematic and the characters and the plot, this is definitely my symbolism. This one's my favorite.
Yeah, I remember Ozymandias on IMDb is probably like the highest rated episode of TV.
I think it is. It's
second
the
or third
only one with like it has a 10.0 on IMDb.
I don't think that's true. I think it's like a
No,
I can just
it has a 10.0 on IMDb. I looked it up like ago.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That's insane. I didn't know that.
Wow.
Did you know you know those pants at the first episode?
Yeah. They're there.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't notice that.
What's genius? What is genius about this episode is how this episode opens up. Is it like shows them like cooking at this first place, and it shows like this is the beginning of the Empire, and it does like that great like transition where like where the RV disappears, and it goes, now this is the end of the Empire. Like you see where it all started, and now this is where it all ends. It's like poetry.
It shows legitimately Walter's first lie.
To Skylar
about this. It's the very first lie is that he's going to stay at late at the car wash.
Yeah, and how that all those lies built up to this. And it's just like it's almost like when you watch that, it's a show of being like how far we've come, and how it's so it contrasts it so much. And in a lot of ways, I think this episode Ozymandias is maybe not in terms of obviously the episode count, but I think in a lot of ways this episode almost seems like the last episode of the show. Like it almost feels like an ending.
Yeah.
And I know that there's 2 more episodes after, and they're great, and they do what they need to do, but I think like this really feels like it wraps up everything that it needs to, almost. Maybe not in terms of like the plot threads, but like the
because obviously Jessie and
Skylar, but
yeah. And this is now here's a hot take, because I know this isn't a shared opinion by many. I honestly would have preferred an ending closer to this ending of this episode.
Ooh, that's hot.
Versus, or at least not maybe the specifics. Obviously, there's still Jessie and Skylar and all that, but that type of ending of Walter not getting anything he wanted.
All right, we'll talk about that because I disagree hardcore, but I'll love to talk about that. That'd be great.
That is a completely personal thing because I prefer that type of.
Yeah.
However,
I mean, Hank's death. There's so much here. Hank's death. I mean, even honestly, like, not to like skew away from that. We can come back to that, but just that scene with the fight between Walt Jr. and Skylar with the knife.
Yeah,
like it's just it's just like so horrifying, and that it's just this brilliant delivery where like after like Walt Jr. and Skylar like holding each other, looking horrified at. Walt has this line where he says it very confidently. He's like, "We're family," and then like as he looks at their reaction, he almost is like he says it again, but he's like, "We're family." Like he says it like he doubts himself, and he's like,
"That's a moment some people laugh at too," because I've watched some reaction videos. And because if you think about it, people laugh at that particular line because of what just happened in the scene before. They were just fighting literally with a knife. And Walt's like, we're a family when they don't look. Again, it's one of those things. It's not really a funny moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I've never laughed at it.
I get it, though. No, I get that. And it is, well, it's ironic. And that within itself is what makes it funny. Because it's how he still is like so obsessed with having this perfect family, but his family's been dead for years, for so long now.
Some of the 2 climax scenes. I mean, there's more than that, but is for me is the crawl space and that house with the fight with the knife.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole show is him
absolutely.
For his family, and he realizes they're not a family anymore.
No.
He says that.
Yeah.
He says that confidently and then less confidently. Because that's when he really realizes.
he has that realization, and he's like, holy shit, like I don't have a family anymore, and that's
to the
like,
point.
And he obviously just lost his empire. He just lost his empire. He lost everything, and now he lost his family. Like this is like literally he has nothing left, and I
Can't get. Oh,
and I could see why maybe that'd make a good ending to your point, but it
Yeah,
almost
so-
is an ending in a way.
but not that particular scene. I meant like the whole end of the episode.
Oh, fair enough.
And then he can't get Walter Jr. to do what he wants. He can't get Skylar to do what he wants.
There's
The only
no one
person
left
in
to
the family
manipulate.
he can do is Holly.
Exactly.
He can get Holly to do what he wants. He can just grab her and go.
Right, and-
I think that's one of the most intense scenes for me is him smashing the car behind him with Skylar screaming to get the baby back.
And not even that. Like you're right. He has no one left to manipulate. So he does, and he has no one left to like talk to. So he does it to the only person who doesn't have a choice. And what I love is the scene where he takes her and then they're in the bathroom, and then she says like "mama," and like apparently according to the behind
That was not scripted.
That was not scripted, but the symbolism there is genius because like the first words of a baby is always "dada" because those words are they're easier to say, like da 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 da. It's much easier to like it's a much complex word. So the fact that she said that first just shows to Walt and to the audience how much of a like he wasn't present in her life. Like how
I don't think necessarily that would be her first words. She might have been speaking a little bit before then, but I just think the fact that
it's the first time
she
we
said
see her
that
speak.
at that time.
Yeah.
No, that's true. That is the first time we've seen her speak.
And that's the first time where we're like, yeah.
And Bryan Cranston plays it beautifully, not planned, but you can see on his face, it feels like that's the moment where he decides to do the phone call. I used to think that as soon as he said the second time we're a family, he thought of that whole scheme, and that's why he grabbed Holly, is to give plausible deniability. But I think that he really did grab Holly. That was the only thing he felt he could do.
Right.
And then he devised the plan later.
Yeah, I mean but it's just so genius how it's like
it really
it just shows how absent he was and how much of he again like reiterates like he's not part of this family and he's destroyed it basically, and it's so like tragic, but it's almost like you almost are rooting for it. Like, not that I'm rooting for like I don't want to like see Walter Jr. and Skylar get hurt, but I'm like, you almost want to. For me, at least, I was like, yes, like I want to see this like this end, right? But it's tragic.
So many of these scenes in this episode, it's so dense with all my favorite scenes. Because then the phone call after that is one of my favorite scenes. First time I watched it, I didn't understand what was going on, and I had to read discussion boards. Like I read the discussions right after before moving on to the next episode, and I was like, "Oh, that's what was happening. Oh, I get it." Again, I was a younger man back then.
Younger man, so, yeah.
Well, it was when I was first really taking the art of film and television seriously, and not just having it on in the background and really analyzing it. And so, I mean, thankfully, I'm a little better at it now. But back then, I didn't understand really what that scene was about. And
I've watched several reactions to that episode as well, and it seems to be like a 50-50 split of people understanding what's happening and people just being like, what the fuck are you talking about, Walt?
Yeah. Oh, there are a couple reactors that saw so much in the first rewatch that I never saw, and I thought they were just brilliant. But anyway, that phone call scene, I think that's an example of treating your audience with intelligence, with allowing some of the audience members to not get something in order to create a more subtle, more nuanced scene. With Skylar, you can see it. The acting, phenomenal, best acting in the series for. Some of the best acting in the whole series. With Walt crying on the side of the phone, but having to. I think that really is Walt. That's not Heisenberg. That's and having to, in this case, pretend to be Heisenberg and saying that he killed Hank.
Interesting.
And yeah, it's just and seeing Skylar dawn on her. She was really angry at him at the beginning of the call and realizing what he was doing, because he was saying stuff true, that it was all him and stuff. And she really does understand, oh, he's figured it out, that people are listening, and he's giving me a way out of this.
Right.
And it's one of their last conversations, and and it's really one of the only good things that he does near to the end of the season is getting her off the hook. He could totally have been vindictive and let her face the consequences, but obviously he needs them to get the money, because in his own brain, then that makes all of this purposeful.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man. Yeah. That whole sequence, though. I mean, this whole episode is just so...
Yeah. Whole thing.
It's so good. Right? But, like, man. Are there any other scenes from this episode we want to talk about before we move on?
I mean...
Bob has anything or anything?
Beginning scene with Hank and stuff.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was, Walter Jr. finding out. I think that was... I've been somewhat iffy on his acting throughout the series, but I think he acted a good job with that.
You know what? Not even acting. I guess, like, I mean, I know I'm trying to stay on task with the episode here, but Walt Jr. as a character I actually didn't like for a good portion of the show. I want to say it was like until like season 3 or so that I was like, oh, I like him. But I actually really didn't.
Interesting.
I didn't really.
I don't think I ever.
I just didn't. It's not that I was like, I hate Walt Jr. I just didn't feel a connection with him. I just didn't.
You really love breakfast.
I didn't really like where his character went.
Or
at least not
immediately.
Where it went,
I immediately found his character interesting. I don't think they kept this interestingness there, but I found his character interesting when, in the first season, when he said, "Well, why don't you just go die already?" When Walt's refusing treatment. I thought that's one of my favorite parts.
Oh, that's a great scene. That's like the one moment in season 1 where I'm like, yes, like, and you get where he's coming from. Like, it makes sense from his character.
Why are you just giving up? And I love that Walter explains that with again, I've got the talking pillow. That's pure comedy. That's so great.
Yeah.
But he gives a really emotional speech about wanting control and not wanting his family to see him go through chemo and look terrible,
which
and
is
stuff.
one of my favorite scenes.
Immediately after that scene, he tells Skylar he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. But I think that's because he loves his family and he realized he wants to put their needs before his own.
Oh man, yeah.
We keep jumping seasons, don't we?
Well, it's so hard to. It is so much to talk about, and
everything's connected.
When you
so many callbacks, so much everything.
When you bring up something that's just so interesting like that, like you kind of start to really like. You start to like really. Just like everything comes into perspective. It's like the show is like a bunch of puzzle pieces, and everything just starts to click, and that's when you're kind of like, whoa, like. Oh man, I don't know. I can't explain it, but when you start talking about it, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think for the most part, I think they could have utilized Walt for sure. I think he was a little too out of the show in entirety, and I think that's just because they didn't know what to do with him. You know, they needed Walt to have a kid so that he has the motivation, but besides that. It was probably a struggle to actually think of what to do with him, especially with a show so cram-packed with other storylines.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Although I will say I do like when he wants to be known. What was his name? Oh, Flint, wasn't it?
Flynn.
That's right. And then when he's really mad at Skylar for kicking his dad out of the house. And she keeps calling him Flynn. He says, "My name is Walter Jr." What, you can't even say his name anymore? Because the blame is so on Skylar. And the view of everyone besides Walt and Skylar is that Skylar's the bad guy, right? She's the one doing all this. When it's really just Walt is ostracizing everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty fucked up. Like the whole... Yeah, and Walt Jr. definitely acts as like... I guess... I don't want to say like he acts like as almost like a way for Skylar to really show Skylar and Walt's relationship almost. If that makes any sense. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I absolutely get that. I mean, he works his motivation, and I think they did giving him stuff to do nearer to the end.
Yeah.
Especially with the focus of getting the kids away from Walt. Stuff like that, and Walt's discussion with Walt Jr. about how his cancer's back, because the scene where Walt Jr. is going to go to Hank's, but this is after Hank knows like Marie and Hank are trying to lure
Get him in
Walter
there?
Jr. into the house.
Yes.
And so then Walter has to manipulate his own son
Yeah.
and talk about the cancer being back. And so then Walter Jr. feels guilty about leaving.
Yeah.
Stays
Oh, that's a
with
fucked up scene. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. And again, my mind's just going a mile a minute because now I'm thinking about things in that scene right before he tells Walter Jr. he has cancer. He's covering up his black eye from Hank.
Yeah.
And that's
yes.
just like the scene. That's just like the scene in season 1 when Jessie is covering his eye with the same type of cream. I don't know what that means.
I didn't
but
even
that's
think
a
about
repeated
that.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a I saw like a series of pictures of repeated shots, and that was one of them. It'd be, if you ever have time, that would be an interesting thing for you to go look at.
I definitely will. I'm gonna look at this color thing you sent me in the Discord in a little bit too. Well,
I guess that leaves one thing.
I guess that leaves the one thing we have left to talk about that we haven't talked about.
The little loose ends that I don't see talked about a lot because I've watched a lot of discussions. You know, I go through phases where I'm like really into.
You cut out.
Breaking
Sorry.
Bad.
What'd you say?
Oh.
You said you go through phases where.
Oh, I go through phases where I'm really into something.
Yes.
And until I moved on to the next thing, and for a long time that was Breaking Bad.
You and me both. That is how I operate. I am very much like I am obsessed with this thing for a month straight, and then I don't think about it again. Well, I don't think about it again, but then I kind of like, oh yeah, I enjoy it, and then I do that with music. I do that with movies. I do that with video games. Like I literally all the time.
100%.
Like
100%.
I will be listening to this album. And I do it in music all the time. I'll listen to an album like this is the best album I've ever heard. Like there's no doubt about it. This is the best album. And then I'll listen to another one. I'm like, no, this is the best one. That one's good, but not as good as this one. Then I just go back and forth. Yeah, it's the same thing. So I understand it. 100%.
I've ruined so much music for myself by listening to it until I get sick of it.
Yeah,
I just wish I could stop doing it.
Yeah.
No, sorry. What I was asking is, should we do the ending first or the little scenes?
I guess do the little scenes
we'll
first.
do the sense first.
Okay. So there's a piece of, obviously the show uses everyday objects and stuff like that as ways to explore the characters. For example, like the eyeball from the teddy bear and stuff like that. Oh, that's right. There's a scene where Skylar finds that eyeball in Walt's apartment. Yeah, she is in Walt's apartment and she opens a drawer of utensils and she sees the eyeball. That's the last appearance of it, besides the beginning of season 3. I don't know what it means, but I just remembered. Anyway, okay, so there is one of my favorites, if not favorite, symbolism in the show, which only appears very briefly. I think it has a lot to say. Season 2, episode 3, Walt has faked his fugue state. But he realizes, I don't remember the exact situation, but he goes home on a bus and he has to do something with his money at home. Mm-hmm. Like it's outside of the vent or something like that. I think he puts it in the vent, something like that. And he sees Skylar and Walter Jr. Kind of hugging in the kitchen, really suffering because they were so worried about him. And he's looking through the crack in the door and you see a tear go down his eye. He makes it all the way back to the hospital. He puts the IV back in his arm and he sits down on the hospital bed and he looks to the right of him and he sees a painting. And the painting is, I have it right in front of me, is of, I guess I'll just post it, is of of 3 people, a woman and 2 children, and a guy rowing away.
Oh,
and
man.
I think that says so much about the show. That's the whole again, so many things are the whole show.
Yeah, right.
But he is simultaneously doing all of this for his family while getting further away from his family than he's ever been. He's leaving his family. He's not going to be able to come back. This painting. Perfect. This painting shows up a second time. Only 2 times in the whole show. You know, that one.
I recognize the painting. If you showed this to me, I wouldn't have been like, "Oh, that's from Breaking Bad," but I do remember seeing this before. So
this was actually painted for Breaking Bad. So obviously they put a lot of importance on it, even for just like 2 shots in the whole show, which is crazy.
What was the other shot?
The other shot was in season 5, part 2, when he's talking with Jack about killing Jessie. He sees the painting and he says, "You know, I bet there's a warehouse full of identical paintings." like this. He has a line or something.
Man.
Like
I know. I do remember that.
Yeah. He completely gets sidetracked and then he goes back to Jack. It's the same exact painting.
Huh.
I don't know what the second appearance of it really means.
Symbolizes, yeah.
But I think it could mean he's thinking about everyone else who's left their family like this.
Yeah.
Or he's thinking about the fact that he's finally giving up Jessie. He's leaving Jessie just like he left, because he's getting ready to put a hit out on him.
Yeah.
It could be one of those. I don't know. It's what, this is a very small detail,
right?
But it's one of my favorites. I love this painting.
I'm really glad you shared that. I never noticed that.
Couple other scenes, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
So,
yours.
Again, I talk a lot to give context.
That's fine.
Where in the story
do it. Yeah, it worked. It puts me right back into it. So
awesome. Exactly. Well, it helps me too. This is right after Hank has been. This is season 3. He's been almost killed by the twins. He's in the hospital. Gus visits the hospital. Gus knows lying about not being able to do the batch. Why? It was because Hank was in the hospital, but Gus knew all along. Blah, blah, blah. Episode after that, Walt figures out why that Gus redirected the hit from him to Hank. And he confronts Gus about it. And he talks about his exit strategy, because they've only talked about a year of cooking, or I only talked about 3 months for $3 million, or I think it was 15. I don't remember what the number was. Anyway,
I think it was 3 months for $3 million.
Okay. Anyway, he talks about what's going to happen at the end of those months, because obviously he's a loose end. And so Gus says, well, listen, I'll give you 3 months for $3 million, extended, open-ended for the whole year. Let's round it up to 15. And you'll be just doing this forever, because Gus knows he's sick. And he says, would that suffice? And Walt kind of looks down a little bit and goes and gives just a very slight nod. Mm-hmm. On his way back, he's driving on the highway and he closes his eyes and he starts drifting into a lane.
I remember that. Yeah.
And the trucks, and he's just,
yes.
He's just closing his eyes, just going down this road. And suddenly he finally snaps out of it when this truck's about to hit him and he swerves off.
I remember that.
I've been so unclear about what this scene means.
Yeah,
because I never thought about it after that scene showed. I thought, oh, that must mean something, and then just never thought about it. But I really think that's, again, going back to, he was only signed on for 3 months, and now he's going to be doing it for the rest of his life. But his cancer's receded. Yeah. And he's putting his family in danger. I think it's another one of those things where he doesn't care if he lives or dies. And he'd rather die. Definitely. I think that's what that means. But that scene is such a small scene, and I have hardly ever heard it talked about.
Yeah, so. I never heard that. I know exactly.
You remember
the scene.
that?
Yeah. I actually kind of remember it. I kind of think that, when I don't remember what I thought when I watched it. I kind of have to rewatch the scene. I don't remember, did he... When he was driving, did he see the truck coming and then close his eyes, or did he close his eyes before he saw the truck coming?
He heard it.
Heard it and opened so he almost I think closing his eyes is just let's see what fate leads me. Let's see.
The look on his face is of just of I don't know how to describe it.
I know what you're saying though.
It's just he's given up.
Defeat. Yeah.
It's not a determination. It's he's speeding on the highway.
He's almost,
let go of the.
He's almost like he's not going to kill himself, but he'll close his eyes and let it happen.
Yeah. Apathetic.
Yeah, but then his instincts kick in.
He's ready to die. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
His fight for life
kicks in.
Yeah. And again, it's interesting that I think after that scene he doesn't want to die, because you remember obviously, but end of season 3, the whole reason they kill Gale is so Walt won't die.
Yeah.
So obviously he still wants to live. So somewhere, obviously it's very gradual. He's going from accepting his fate to wanting to fight it.
Yeah. Definitely.
But I think that scene, that highway scene, is just one of the many milestones of or checkpoints, for lack of a better term, into this gradual descent.
Yeah. Oh man.
Again, it's been a while. There's a baby shower.
Yep.
This is after Walt's shaved his head. It's Walter Jr. has the camera. And they put the camera on. Yeah, I think Marie makes a joke about the baby being named something else. I don't remember what the name was. Anyway, and that Skylar's hardly showing yet, stuff like that. Anyway, Walter Jr. puts the camera on Walt, and I think Skylar asks, hey, say some words for Holly, right? So when she's born, she can see it. And I don't remember exactly what she says, but I've always thought about that little section of tape and whether she ever would see that. You know, because after, obviously, they tell her about her dad.
What did Walt say? Do you remember?
Oh, I gotta look it up.
You don't remember?
I don't
He
even
said
know.
something about being very proud of her. And
You're completely right. Very proud of you. Wherever you go, and I support you, and something like that.
And now, how much meaning that has? Like the different meaning that has, rather.
Yeah, exactly. And I always imagine her viewing. Because that's basically the only clip of him talking to her, essentially.
I just thought of this funny idea. So Better Call Saul is like a spin-off show?
What if I was thinking exactly the same thing.
What if they did no, hear me out. No, this is a bit, by the way, I'm not being serious. What if they did a spin-off show, hear me out, with Holly, right? Hear me out. A Christmas special called Holly Jolly Christmas, and it's all about her and during Christmas figuring out who her father was.
Oh my god.
Like you're 15th year old, whatever. Oh my god.
I had a thought that came to mind about that being kind of like a serious thing.
I was not being serious.
No. Like it came to my head like right before you said that as like a serious thing. I was like, what if like that tape is like the only thing she's seen of her father?
I feel like that would be a good short film rather than like a series.
Yeah, that's what I thought of. No, I thought the same thing of Better Call Saul before I started watching it. I thought excessive.
Oh, you cut out.
Breaking Bad and I thought the same thing about Better Call Saul. They're just trying to milk the success of Breaking Bad, but
Better Call Saul has absolutely become its own entity at this point. It's absolutely incredible.
I'm curious, Bob. Do you think that the cinematography is better than Breaking Bad?
At times, there's certain points where I feel like they're going a little bit too much in terms of trying to make it look good, but and I feel like I can tell when they're trying hard, which you didn't tell like they were like intentionally trying in Breaking Bad when stuff looked good. Mm-hmm. But in Better Call Saul, like stuff does look good and it's filmed great. Yeah. But then I feel like there are moments where I feel like they're trying.
I feel like it's filmed. It's filmed very differently. It's digital. Yes. It's way less handheld. It's mostly tripod. Like it's very stable and still shots. And I'm sorry, I'm totally getting off topic.
Anyway,
this is the one thing we can talk about Better Call Saul and not spoil anything.
That's true. Anyway. That's the thing. So I talked about my obsession. That's my obsession right
there. You go. You're good. You got it.
But Better Call Saul has given me such an appreciation for other things in Breaking Bad, though. Like, it has made me like Mike as a character so much more. So. Oh man,
when you don't, I didn't think they to some of the characters, but they.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest. Yeah, it's. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to start talking about this. I'm gonna never stop.
So, how about that ending, though? All right. So all right. We're just gonna go into it. So you said, I'm not quoting you. I'm not like you said this. Defend yourself. No, I'm just kind of like exploring an idea you brought up. You said that you weren't. Maybe they weren't. Not. All right. I'll let you say it. What are your opinions? About the ending?
Let me. So
I want to misquote you.
See, now it's good. It feels like I'm giving you the impression that I don't like the ending.
No.
I really like it. I think it's endings to it. It's how it wraps everything up. It's, I just think it's a perfect blend of a lot of stuff. I think, though, that the way the show has portrayed itself, it feels kind of like a different show to me. Mm-hmm. It feels like Ozymandias was the real ending.
Yes.
And the episodes after that aren't, not that they're unnecessary, but that
they're an epilogue almost.
They almost feel like an epilogue, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like, okay, so it feels like the show has two endings. It feels like it has Ozymandias, and then it feels like it has a little bit of a happier ending in the ending that we got.
Happy?
And
I don't think so.
For Walt, absolutely, absolutely.
I guess so.
He got the money to his family. He got Jessie free.
But
obviously, now I'm not saying purely when I'm thinking about this ending. I'm thinking about Walt.
True.
I'm not thinking about Jessie. Obviously, I prefer Jesse's ending in the final episode to Ozymandias. He doesn't have any conclusion to that.
Yeah.
I'm purely thinking about Walt's arc.
Yes.
Because I always assumed while I was watching the show, seeing how the show, how Walt just gets in worse and worse situations, I always predicted that it would just all fall apart and he'd never accomplish the goal. A part of me just feels like he didn't deserve to be able to get that money to his family.
Yeah.
But at that point, you still feel happy for the family getting. That's.
Yeah. No. Absolutely for the family. And I feel. I get it. Again, these are more feelings. These aren't really.
I see where you're coming from. How I view the ending is I view the ending as Walt died exactly how he lived. And I think that is potent. And I think that maybe you could argue that, yeah, like he didn't like, he died before he got caught. So he didn't like have to deal with the consequences per se. But I think he did almost. I think the consequences were more not like external or not, or rather they were internal. Yeah. And what I think is like Walt had to die, obviously, right? I think if this show not ending with, literally one of the first things you find out is he has cancer, like he's going to die. It's about how he dies and his death, literally, whether it be physical or emotional, mentally, whatever. But I think that where would he die, right? And I think that him dying in the meth lab is perfect because we saw in a couple previous scenes where he was talking to Skylar where he said, like, I did this all for me, right? Like, I did this all for myself. And him dying in the meth lab is really the only place, at least in terms of the show, where it's only the place where he really felt alive. It's really the only place where he expressed himself. It's only the place he really felt like he lived.
He felt in control.
Yeah. It's the only place where Heisenberg lived. And I feel like mirroring the shot of the crawl space scene, that's the scene where Walter White dies. But this scene is where Heisenberg dies. And it's sort of like there's the two deaths of the characters. And I think that maybe Heisenberg's death isn't super depressing, but in a way Walter White's death is extremely depressing. So I think like that I can see where you're coming from. I don't think he necessarily gets what he wants. I don't think I can see what you mean by like it's a happier ending than him just like, let's say like, I don't know, just like everything falls apart in front of him and that's the end of his life. Yeah. But I think in a way like it's him. His death scene is where he dies is so, I think, important because it represents everything about him or everything that he lived for, I guess, which was the meth lab and not his family. If Walter White died with his family, I would have been pissed. I would have been like, this is a terrible ending. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, totally.
Like if he died with like his family around him but he died alone. He died with no one around him, by himself in a meth lab. And yeah, in a way, that's what he wanted, and that makes him happy. But I would say that that's actually... him being happy with him dying there is almost sadder. It's kind of sad and pathetic. That is what made him happy. That's where he wanted to die. And that's the true tragedy of the show, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, that was beautifully put. Yeah. No, I absolutely get that. And I agree with a lot of those points. I'm just moving that ending just a little bit. I should have mentioned this. It's not exactly at the ending of Ozzy. It's him dying from cancer in the little cabin that he's put up in. Right? He makes one last effort to Walt Jr. And right now it just sounds like I'm writing my own ending, which I feel silly. But
no, I get what you're saying.
But he tries one last effort to Walter Jr. and then that's it. However, it feels like the very last episode is a tiny bit of a crowd pleaser, as in the fact that there's some old characters coming back and there's because when the show was written, it was the most popular band. This show wasn't very popular until near the end of the 4th season when it got on Netflix.
Yes.
Which is crazy to think about.
Really?
Oh yeah, no.
It wasn't. I think it was end of season 3. It ended up getting on Netflix, and then that was when it blew up.
That's funny that you say that, because I always thought the show was popular from the start, because I knew about it from the start.
No.
No.
It was very close to being
The
canceled.
pilot was originally filmed for HBO.
Wait, this show was close to being canceled?
I mean, it was, because it didn't have many viewers.
What?
The first and second and third season, its viewership was, I could look up the numbers actually. 5th season had a huge amount of viewers compared to all the rest, maybe even combined.
Oh man, I thought this show.
It's because
was
people
always...
binged it 1 through 4.
Huh. That's funny that you say that. Maybe it's just because I knew about it and I had like a bias that I thought it was popular.
Yeah.
I thought we saw this.
No, that makes sense.
It was post-mortem popular.
Yeah. Huh.
Viewership. Okay, so here, season 1 had 1.23.
Okay.
Average viewers was 1.23 million.
I mean, that's not terrible for a first season.
Season 2, 1.3 million.
Yeah.
Season 3, 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Season 4, 1.9 million. And season 5, 4.32 million.
Jesus.
Yeah, it really popped off.
Also, the last season took 2 years to release, so that does make sense too.
Yeah, that is true.
But even beyond that, I mean, like anything above 1 million, I guess maybe for cable is not that great. I feel like it's not that bad for cable. Watching it, like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just
It was lower. I just remember watching a lot of behind the scenes and them saying they weren't sure if they were going to renew. For example, they wrote season 4 as if there were no other seasons. Like that could be an ending to the show.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean that if the show would have ended there, I actually could see that.
I could see that too.
The end of season 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Season 5 does almost feel like its own contained thing. It's kind of weird.
While as season 3, they knew they were going to keep going, and so they were able to leave that little tiny cliffhanger.
That's why basically the Gus story was 3 and 4, basically.
Yeah, I'm going to backtrack a little bit.
Go ahead.
Forget everything I said about. I never said the ending was bad. I was just saying it feels. I don't know. Maybe I have unresolved issues with, or not issues, but I just think that. I mean, everything that he planned to do, get the money to his family, release Jessie, poison Lydia, everything worked perfectly. And I kind of liked everything going wrong for him. And I didn't want to start rooting for him again. I do like how after all that bad stuff he did, people were able to start rooting for him again with those last 2 episodes. They made him sympathetic again with him being very lonely in the cabin and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Well,
maybe I just have complex thoughts on
cabin scenes. I mean, those are how he would literally pay the dude to fucking stay with him, like how just desperate he was for human interactions. In a way, like that was just torture enough. Like, and I feel like that, like, I'm not saying that like, oh, Walt suffered enough. Like, I'm not saying he obviously, like, you know what I mean? But I'm saying is, I think, I don't know. I personally, and I don't say this, ending a television show is like in the top 5 hardest things to do of all time.
Yeah.
It is so difficult. It's not easy to do. And I think some shows, Game of Thrones, don't do it very well. And some shows, I don't know. I was actually, thinking about good endings of television shows, and I think this ending is perfect. This may be my favorite ending to a television show. Like, I think it's perfect how it's handled.
Yeah, it is. It is very, very good.
Yeah.
I should preface that ending in any story is, to me, the most important part. Because if an ending is bad to something, for me, it taints the whole experience.
Yeah.
Because while I'm going through a show, I'm always thinking about where it's going to end. I'm always thinking about this all serves the purpose of going towards the ending. And if an ending doesn't quite click,
right,
now this is not the case with Breaking Bad, but for some movies where I've liked a lot of it, but then the ending wasn't good, it's tainted the rest of it because I always assume when I'm watching it that the point is going to be made, or it's all build up towards something.
That's a good way to view it. It's an interesting way to view it. I view it differently. I'm never about the ending. Like, I'm always kind of about, like, getting there. Like, for me, like, I don't know. This is a good example. Have you ever watched Avatar: The Last Airbender? Have you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender? Okay. That's
it's always on my list, though.
It's the best.
Very highly rated.
Maybe the best cartoon of all time. It really. I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it. It may be the Breaking Bad of cartoons in terms of like the quality of it.
Maybe the Dark Souls of cartoons.
It's like really fucking good. My point is the ending of it. Yeah. You kind of know how it's going to end from the beginning, and the ending isn't like phenomenal. It's just like, all right, that's what would you imagine happened.
Well, yeah, we made it.
Yeah, but the journey there, and like and there's so many other shows I think of that I don't. Like, I'm like, the ending is, if it does, for me, an ending is, if you built up to it and you earned it, then we're good.
Yeah.
If there's a big twist and something at the end, that's cool. If there's not, that's fine. As long as you build up and earn it. I'm less concerned about how it ends and more about going there. Like, when I think about Breaking Bad, for example, like, I'll never be like, oh, let me type up the ending scene. I'm gonna like, I want to see this scene season 1. This one. Yeah. That's how I think about shows. So for me, like, an ending can be bad, and I can totally be like redeem it. It does depend how long the ending is bad. Like, if like, for example, in terms of Game of Thrones, like, I don't know, I thought the last like couple seasons were terrible. So like, it's not just the ending. But like for me, it's like I don't mind if an ending is just, whatever, as long as, again, everything leading up to it is good, I guess. But I think Breaking Bad, it's built up to, and it's earned, and it feels right, and it makes sense, and I think it's really the only way I could see ending this in a way that's like,
not ridiculous.
Not like, it did what it needed to do. I mean, it is kind of ridiculous if you think about it, but
yeah, I mean, like,
in a good way.
Yeah.
Well, the great thing about it is they ended it both ways so that everyone's happy. I'm still happy because I still got Ozymandias. I still got every part. But then the people who did want him to succeed a little bit at the end, they got that too.
But see, the thing is I don't think he succeeded. And no. I know exactly what you mean. I'm not arguing against you. I'm arguing against people who would see that and go, he succeeded. Yeah. Like, I think, like, in his mind he succeeded, but I think in his success is not what his mind dictates. Like, he has a very warped view of what success is. And that's kind of the whole. I'm gonna say it again. That's the whole show. But
I think the best way to describe it is it's a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah, definitely. So. Right, exactly. Like for people who watch that ending and go, "Oh, that was a happy ending." Like, those are the same people who are like, those are the same people who are like, "Man, I love Walt." And man, fuck Skylar. Like, those are the same people. Like, for me, like, it's like you missed the point. Like, that ending
had a very interesting perspective of hating Jane, which was weird to me.
What was this?
Remember Kevin hated Jane?
Oh, your brother? Yeah. I don't really understand that.
Yeah.
I can understand that because it could. No. I don't hate you.
No. I wasn't saying that. I was just joking. Sorry.
I can understand it because what she's doing is she's it feels like she's using Jessie, I think, to some people to get that money. I don't think that's what she's doing, and I think she legitimately wants to stop, but she doesn't have the power to. She's legitimately saying, let's move somewhere, let's stop all these drugs, not because my dad's telling us, but because we really want to. But then they have that last look at the thing, and obviously Walt finds them all drugged out.
Right.
But
I just
going back to endings.
Wait, can I actually bring up something and then we can get back to the ending? Yeah. Sorry, I just thought of this because I was thinking about this. I can think of something I don't really like about this show, but not like something I'm like, I don't like about the show, but an aspect of it that I wish they maybe explore a little more. I felt like they left. Is it Andrea? Is that her name? Andrea.
Andrea.
They kind of left her hanging a bit. You know what I mean?
I mean, they didn't.
They killed
her. No.
Oh no.
No, I don't mean the ending. I mean, like, I feel like in the show, like they were
for a while, yeah.
Like they had like Jessie and her relationship, and it was kind of like they were exploring it a little bit, and I was actually kind of interested. I was like, oh, maybe like we could develop her a little more. I'd kind of like to explore her, and then they kind of just like dropped. I feel like they just dropped her from the show for a while, and then she disappeared for like a good season.
It's because Jessie dropped her. It's because
true.
he was all drugged out, and he didn't want that effect to be on her and Brock, and so he gave her some money, didn't allow her.
Yeah.
So remember that
Yeah.
He
whole
sent
party
someone
he
in
had?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
No,
then-
I
and
mean,
then
I
when-
know the show's reason for it, and I get it.
Yeah.
I just felt like
You wanted more of it.
I feel like, what maybe they should have done is they should have introduced her a little bit later, and then like have when she disappeared only exist for like maybe like half a season or something, or like a whole season. Like it felt like she was gone for like, I want to say, like, if I'm not mistaken, she was absent for like at least a season and a half.
She was
No, it was
gone
not that
from.
long.
She was gone from season 4, episode 3 to season 5, episode 2.
Oh, was it?
It was like a whole season, right? Yeah.
It was about a season. Yeah.
There was literally a point in the show where I'm like, is she gonna go? Like, if she never came back, it would have been like, it wouldn't have shocked me.
It would have been weird to have her though, while Jesse, got his head shaved and he was doing all that work for Mike.
Andrew was there later in season 4 because the whole thing. Jesse.
Oh yeah, with Brock. What am I
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about? I'm an idiot. I'm so sorry. I'm such a dumb. Oh yeah, no, you're so
Yeah,
right.
you are right.
Oh, it's been a long call.
But
yeah,
that's true. Actually, I forgot about
no,
that.
That's what I'm here for.
It's about a half. A season. It's about
I
a half
remember
a-
facts. I don't do much input, but I remember facts.
Bob's our fact checker.
Good, thank you. So yeah, it was beginning of season 4, the end. So it was about a half a season. If it was season 4, episode 3, to the point where he came back from Mexico. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he breaks up with her because of Walt midway through the first half of season 5. Season 5A.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, going back to the it's completely personal. I'm just speaking from my point that endings for me, I don't think this should apply to anybody.
Yeah.
Because it's a gift and a curse. Where an ending
Right.
it's for me, if an ending's good to like really good and everything else is mediocre, it can elevate the whole thing for me. Or if an ending's bad but everything else was good, it can make it just go a peg lower for me. So I guess it all depends. I like viewing a story as a whole. That's why I don't start any TV shows until they finish.
Interesting.
Apparently not Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
Well, now that's because I know they've proven themselves. It's all the same people, all the same crew,
The show ends realizing it's an alternate universe, and Saul's like, it's like interdimensional being, and you're like, what? You'll feel how all of us felt for like Game of Thrones. You'll feel it.
They wake up in Malcolm in the Middle again. I don't know if you've seen.
I have. Yeah. I actually know what's funny is I watched Malcolm in the Middle as a kid before I watched Breaking Bad. So
Yeah, I had seen a few episodes.
I knew, like, I loved that show, and I was like in middle school and elementary school, way before I saw Breaking Bad. So I associated Bryan Cranston with that show, and like even in that show, like he's really good in that show. Like he's really good, but like now, like it's like, oh my god, like it's so weird, bizarre. But I know exactly when he wakes up. He's like, I had this weird dream. Yeah, yeah.
It's so crazy to me that the lead of Breaking Bad before these shows were very much comedic actors, and now they're both getting nominated for Emmys left and right. It's insane.
Yeah, it's a good point.
They both are actually really compelling dramatic actors, which is
Bob Odenkirk's really
which
good,
is.
yeah. Bob Odenkirk's
He's he's actually really good.
Yeah,
in
he is.
Better Call Saul.
I mean, I don't know.
I think he's been nominated. He is a good actor. Yeah, I know that. I remember watching behind the scenes of Breaking Bad and he was so nervous because it was his first serious thing that wasn't comedic. I mean, obviously he's a comedic character, but I remember him saying that he was very insecure about saying his lines and working with all these really good actors. And but now I think he's been nominated for an Emmy every season for best actor.
Oh,
yeah, he has
God.
Best actor.
Yeah. Oh, I need to watch the show.
No, whatever conceptions you have of the show, it's not.
It's not what you think.
Keep talking. I'm watching the first episode right now. No. Man. I guess
it's not. It's a very different show than Breaking Bad. Don't expect Breaking Bad.
Well, I don't. Yeah. I mean, I don't expect any show to be Breaking Bad.
yeah. No, but it's a very different type of show. It's all about character. It's the character studies.
Yeah.
For a bunch of different
people.
people. And I think
you get more backstory in several characters. You get later seasons. You get Gus. You get Mike. It's
which to be honest, and first of all, spoiler. Second of all,
it's not that big a spoiler. I mean, they're in like,
sure.
I didn't say anything about it. I just said they're there.
I to be fair, I did know that, and not to don't bring it up because I don't confirm it, even though I secretly know. I do know another character recently showed up in one of the episodes because I live on the internet, so I can't avoid things. But
yeah. All I was gonna say is the whole show for me. The best part is relationships between characters. That is the best part for me.
Yeah. Oh,
and the way that all the filmmaking supports that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have it doesn't have violence, and it doesn't have, I mean, it's not as violent, it's not
right
as stressful, it's not as all this stuff, but it's a slow character where you see a man rot from the inside. That's
love it. I'm into it.
Awesome. I'm going on one of those tirades about how
no, it's fine. It's fine.
Push it onto my friends.
It's fine. I'm gonna watch it. I swear. I guess now is a good time to sort of like the last thing I really want to, and this is almost it. Like the impact of this show, and I don't mean necessarily on like the world as a whole. I mean like just personally and everything else. Like I mean, Better Call Saul obviously exists now, and that's a pretty big deal. But also just like in terms of like this show, I think in my perspective, like changed television. Like I don't think television will ever be the same after the show. And this show, and I'm not talking necessarily because I'm now learning that at least like the first couple seasons weren't as commercially successful as I thought they were, but it obviously is now. Yeah. But I think this show, like artistically and creatively, started almost like a revolution, whether they did that intentionally or not. And I feel like nothing before this show really existed. Like there's been no Breaking Bad, and I feel like there've been a lot of shows since that that are not Breaking Bad, but you can clearly see are like in the same style or inspired by Breaking Bad. I don't know. I think
these are kind of generalizing, sweeping statements, but I don't, because first of all, I have not watched a lot of TV shows, but I do know that when people are talking about best TV shows, they talk a lot about The Wire, about Sopranos, Mad Men, stuff like that. And I am in the middle of watching The Wire actually, and
never seen it.
It's been really good. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't.
But,
I guess.
Yeah, no.
I guess.
So again,
I guess Sopranos is before Breaking Bad, and that is kind of the first example of like a really grand sort of. Yeah. I guess that is a good case, but Mad Men,
always compare The Wire and Breaking Bad.
I'm not necessarily like saying like Breaking Bad is the reason. I mean, Mad Men came out around the same time as Breaking Bad. I think a little after, actually.
The golden age of television.
Yeah, I feel like it kicked off the golden age of television. Not necessarily saying that is the reason why. I'm just saying like it almost for me.
It was one of the steps.
For me, it symbolizes that, like the start of golden television. Because Sopranos that ended like before Breaking Bad, like a couple of years before Breaking Bad. So.
Yeah, for sure.
You could argue Sopranos started, but I don't know. I never.
I will say
I'm not even gonna front. The only scene I've ever seen from Sopranos is the ending.
Yeah.
Because everyone.
No, wait. I haven't seen anything.
Oh, okay.
I don't want anything spoiled.
Okay. Well,
sorry.
Okay. No, I'm not gonna say what happens, but can I say? No, I won't.
I mean, I can mute.
I was just gonna say it's very controversial, but I love it. Okay. Anyway, I haven't even seen the show. Whatever. All right. Anyway, I don't know. My point is, I feel like Breaking Bad, and maybe we'll like 20 years in the future, we can go back and really see this. I think it will be one of the most impactful television shows of all time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do know that it's been way more successful since it stopped than it was when it was going. That's an actual fact, which is crazy.
Yeah. Well, a lot of television shows do that. That happens sometimes.
Yeah. The Office, that was a big thing. It wasn't nearly as popular as people think it was when it was on.
Right.
I remember way more popular when it was on the air, hearing my parents like watching it in the other room, just like, and like never hearing anything else about it, and then like suddenly years later, everybody on the internet's like, "Oh my god, The Office! Holy shit!"
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with Netflix. The whole reason, and Vince Gilligan has said this many times,
that's
Breaking Bad really shot off is because when season 4 ended, people were able to binge season 1 through season 4, and that's why season 5 was so successful.
Yeah.
And even looking at the chart here, the finale has double the views of almost any of the episodes.
Wow.
Except the first, like the few final ones.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Huh.
was such a cultural phenomenon just within the 5th season. It wasn't at all. Tail end of the 4th season is when it started to really pick up.
Yeah,
but it's weird to think about. And again, I was 13 when it ended. I don't know. I had no clue about it ended. So
yeah, I
had to wait a little bit.
School when it ended. I remember when it ended. It was a big deal when it ended. I remember, like, Breaking Bad's ending. It was a big deal. I remember that.
Yeah, I do remember little snippets.
But also, like, maybe it's just, and this isn't to sound like pretentious or anything, but I think maybe like, because when I think of shows, like, the last thing I think of is really how successful it is. So, like, in my view, I just thought of how critically and how artistically successful it was. So, like, I never really thought of it.
You just think of a good show was successful.
Right. Like, for me, there's a lot of those shows where I think about them and I'm like, oh, this show was really popular, right? And everyone's like, no. I'm like, it wasn't.
Oh, for sure.
That does make sense. I guess I just naturally equivalate quality with success, but obviously it's
not. Oh no, we were just talking about the impact, so I thought it was
that's true. That's a good point. The impact ahead. Yeah. What about, like, personally? I guess that's a good way to, like, wrap it up, I think, because I can tell you right now, and this almost sounds like a negative impact, but it's I guess it's so positive it's negative. I'm almost afraid that there will never be a show that I enjoy as much as this one.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Let me scratch that. I'm afraid that there's never going to be, like, this grand scale live action show, because I can think of many animated shows that I still, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh man, like, the show almost makes me feel less motivated to watch television shows, because a part of my brain is like, it's not going to be as good as Breaking Bad.
It's not going to be as good as Breaking Bad.
But again, if I went to any show thinking that, then I'm just going to make myself miserable. But maybe it's just how I am. And also, I finished this more recently than you guys, so I'm still sort of feeling those effects, and I still think about this show every single day almost. So.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I remember when I was in that zone, I finished it.
It's depressing.
And I think the next rewatch after that was with a couple friends, and the next rewatch after that was with my family, and then the next rewatch after that was I was watching it, but it was I was listening to the commentary.
Oh yeah.
So I was still, like, doing both, and then I don't know if this would count, but I've basically watched it again with all the reaction videos.
Oh boy.
Which again, it's low tier content, but
hey,
I eat that stuff up.
We all like what we like.
I eat up reaction shit like crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I even watch reactions to all the Better Call Saul episodes when they come out too.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
The only reactions I watch are to like cartoons. And only like certain episodes.
That's my brother's thing for sure.
Yeah, I'll watch, like, reactions to like I'll be like, someone would be like watching Last Airbender for the first time, and I'm like, oh, what? Let's just skip to this episode and see what they.
Right.
So I think to sum it up, my for the impact for me at least, it's honestly helped me, in a filmmaking sense, looking out for symbolism and all this stuff. Yes. Breaking Bad was basically my first exposure to that.
Beautiful.
I was talking to my English teacher in college, and for, like, advanced.
Oh, I have some news for you. Well, I'm not an English teacher, but I am. I'm like a teacher partner. I am kind of a teacher, and I have an English degree. So when you said that, I went, oh, really?
Yeah, no. I mean, I'll be honest. I know nothing about you, so that's a cool little
sorry, go ahead.
tidbit. No, so I thought it was really cool. I was talking to my English teacher, and she owns, like, a theater in the town that I'm in. Ooh. She with her husband, and so she's also a big film critic, and
right.
She's really into film as well as books and writing and stuff.
Right.
And I was talking to her about if film ever uses symbolism like that, and the first things that she mentioned, without me prompting, without her knowing that these things, was Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, which I thought was really cool. Yeah. And so then we had a long conversation about that.
Really? How long?
I don't. It was like
3 hours. Not
this long. It was like the last 20 minutes. Yeah. That's pretty long when she's trying to do other stuff.
That's funny. Yeah. No. Yeah. Definitely. Like, this show. I mean, this show. Well, all right. That's what I would say in terms of impact. Is I feel like this show, and you could argue other shows, after this. But I think this show is a best example of seeing almost like film techniques in television. And I think with like Game of Thrones, you see some of that. But I think with Game of Thrones, what you see more is like the spectacle of film in television. And with other shows coming like recently, you almost see like those kind of effects. You know what I mean? Like you almost see like it feels like television is now on the scale a lot of the times of film. And I think Breaking Bad did that, at least artistically. And like I guess like I don't know. I feel like Breaking Bad for me plays out like a film. Like how it's structured, even if how it was written wasn't like a film, because you said like at the end of season 4 they didn't know if it was ending or not, but it still feels like the film is structured like it still feels like the TV show is structured like a film.
Yeah, I think So this goes way into the history I'm talking about, and I'll just say this very briefly. I think something that demonstrates that really well is trailers for stuff nowadays. It's much harder to tell if it's a show or a film
I guess
versus.
So, yeah.
In the 90s,
right,
where the filmmaking was very predictable. Films
cheap,
always have it's always felt like there are movie actors and television actors,
right?
And I feel like that line is getting blurred.
That line, I think, is blurred now at this point.
Yeah, it didn't used to be.
No,
it was very much the quality of the cameras was worse.
Yeah.
Not as big stars.
Television was viewed as very like less artistic, right?
Exactly.
I think the only. Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, we could get. I mean, maybe I shouldn't get into this. The only argument I would make is, I think that the only exception to that would be cartoons. I always thought cartoons on television were always more. Well, I don't know. No, they were. Maybe not. No, they were. Cartoons on television, especially like at least in anime and just not even anime American. I think maybe with some exceptions, always are like grander and more. Maybe not like bigger budgets, but just like better written.
Well, you can do more stuff with that than you can with live action, realistically.
No. I'm not comparing that to live action. I'm comparing it to like animated films. I mean, like in the 90s, like in the early 2000s, like I can't name you many. I mean, I guess in the 90s I can name Lion King, but I can't name, and I guess some Miyazaki films and stuff, but I can't think of like many commercially at least successful animated films that I'm like, oh, that has impacted me as much as I can think of like television shows. And I feel like that is the case with film, and that's like.
Well, I mean, everybody has a crazy love for the Studio Ghibli films,
right?
But like, I've never actually seen any of them.
Oh, man.
They're really good.
They're really good. Well, yeah. Spirited Away is good. Princess Mononoke.
Oh,
yeah.
I like that. The only ones I've seen is Grave of the Fireflies,
oh, that's a great one.
Spirited Away,
and
I think that might be it actually. But the ones I've seen, I've really
Moving
liked.
Castle, Kiki's Delivery Service, they're all really good.
I mean, I own several of them, but I have no.
I mean, my favorite's probably Princess Mononoke, but
okay, we've got a little bit off.
Sorry.
So what I was I think animation quality, generally, again, I'm not talking about specifics. Generally, animated films have better animation quality than animated shows.
True.
Because you have way more to animate
budgets
during a show.
Yeah. And
so I was I was not even thinking about anything.
Sorry.
When I talked about
that's me. Sorry.
But I do think live
That's what
action
happens when you talk to me. Go ahead.
I do think live action has gotten closer and closer to film.
Oh,
television has.
Yes, absolutely. In terms of budgets too. I mean, look at the Game of Thrones final season budget. Didn't go into the writing, but it went into the fucking everything else. The budget is huge. It's crazy. It's like how much? Like what was like 12 million per episode?
No, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was.
Whoa,
crazy.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. So like I feel like now there's a lot of shows like artistically in in terms of production wise becoming a lot like television. And I think Breaking Bad marks maybe not I won't say the start of that, but I will say a start of that. That would be my argument.
Other shows I've heard compared to that type of level of detail and Mr. Robot, I haven't seen it. I've heard really good things
about it too. Yeah.
And
it was $15 million per episode for Game of Thrones season 8.
Yep.
And I had heard
$90 million budget for 6 episodes.
Yep.
I had heard the same thing said about Game of Thrones until recently. Because I know the first 4 seasons are incredible, great.
Yeah.
I mean,
I had heard
honestly,
the same thing
while they were still pulling from the books. They were fantastic.
I don't even want to say like the first 4 seasons. Like honestly, I don't even want to make this comparison because it's not fair. But for me, like the first 4 seasons are of the quality, at least for the most part, that Breaking Bad is. Like it's really like that high. And then it sinks, pretty low.
And I had heard the same thing about Dexter's first 4 seasons until well, speaking of endings, I wouldn't be able to. I don't think I'll ever start that show because I will. If I start something, I need to finish it for the most part, and so I don't think I'll ever start that show. Unfortunately,
I got a bunch of cartoons for you, but that's about it.
Honestly, I love that.
Man.
I've not gotten into anime purely because, and I know you're talking about more.
No,
but
that's fine,
from just I'm assuming you watch anime.
Oh my god, the Dexter finale has a 4.6.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, I've heard terrible things about that show. At least the ending, at least last 4 seasons. I haven't gotten to anime purely because there's certain. I'm an actor. I'm really big into acting.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, when I say I'm an actor, I mean I like acting.
I'm not I understand
paid for anything.
Hey,
I'm on stage.
Hey, I'm a video creator. I get it. I can say that. Doesn't mean I'm.
And so one of my favorite parts of watching movies and stuff. I like the filmmaking.
Right.
So I like filmmaking as well.
Right.
But one of my favorite parts is the acting. When it comes to anime, I'm not quite the biggest fan. It feels like there's not as much nuance when it comes to performance. And so it's held me back a little bit.
All right.
I know that's probably not true.
It's not. It's not. But it's okay.
It feels very exaggerated. I'm generalizing.
Yeah, I know. I get where you're coming from. But I have some. I have some shows. All right. I think you need to watch Avatar: Last Airbender. First of all, like I'm telling you,
that's been high on my list.
I'm telling you, like you will, and you want to talk about. Like nuanced acting, like the voice acting in that show. It's like there are some moments where the voice it hurts you and it makes you feel things. Yeah, you need to watch that. I'm not here. Breaking Bad, it's over. Whatever. I'm here to change lives now. You need to watch that show. I'm telling you.
I know my brothers for years has tried to get me to watch Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, that's a great one too.
I haven't gotten into it.
I would say honestly, just start with Last Airbender. It's it's not that long. It's 60 episodes, 20 minutes. It's not that bad. It's actually 61, but I'm recruiting people now. I'm like an army recruit, but for shows. You need to. I'm telling you, like if you watch that, I'm dead serious. I'm not even joking. If you right now are like, I'm gonna watch that show, and you watched it in a couple months, I would love to come on here and do the exact same thing we did with Breaking Bad for Avatar: Last Airbender. Because I could do that.
Yeah, it's not like I have anything else to do, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where it's a little hard to find. I have it on Blu-ray, but I don't know where you can find it. But it's a little hard to find. But would recommend.
Probably. Okay.
Perfect.
No, I honestly will take that seriously. Yeah.
It's honestly, I think the perfect cartoon show and television show.
I only watch one show at a time, so finish The Wire first.
Okay.
But
then you gotta get you got it. I'm telling you. And that is like a show. It's like Western, but it has. For me, I consider it anime, but it has a lot of anime influences and its style and its the nuances and the mature themes and it's great. It's so good.
My whole fault is that some of the anime tropes that are common annoy me. So hopefully
Avatar: Last Airbender has none of that. There's no real anime.
I've been exposed.
Tropes, actually.
Yeah, I've been exposed to low tier anime where they all rub the back of their neck and act awkward, and they all have. I don't know how to describe it. There's just certain things that get under my skin. That's all.
I got well. I don't know about. I can't say there's none of that, but I don't think there is.
Okay, no. I get it.
It's a. I know we're here talking about Breaking Bad, and I'm probably just gonna edit this out, but I don't know. Maybe I won't. But I can tell you that it is probably the most mature, one of the most mature cartoons ever, despite being for kids. The themes that it deals with is probably.
I'm fine watching stuff for kids.
So I feel like there are anime meant for adults that don't deal with these themes in the same mature and subtle way that Avatar does. So, but we're not here for that, I guess.
No.
I guess that's it. I don't know. Is there any like other like Breaking Bad things that are like, yes? I feel like we kind of covered it all.
We talked it to death. There's a lot.
I mean, I feel like I could still talk about so many things, but I feel like at this point we covered the outlines that at least I wrote down, and then I feel like we mentally need to
Unless
cover.
You can think of another topic, I'd honestly be willing to talk a little bit more, but
I think we did it. I think we did it justice.
And justice, we did it, or as much as we possibly could. Thank you so much for listening to our Breaking Bad series review discussion. Thank you so much for Bob and, of course, Connor for making an appearance on this discussion. And thank you all for listening to the end, assuming you just didn't skip to the end. And if you did listen to the end, congratulations, you get a cookie. To claim this cookie, please follow my Twitch channel in the link in the description. Join my Discord as well. And maybe, just maybe, follow me on Twitter. And until then, more Breaking Bad content will come out in the future. And so will many, many videos on TV shows, movies, and all the such. So if you enjoyed this, please let me know so I can create more content like it. And until next time, bye-bye.